Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Sydney Motorsport Park for day 2 of the Super70 celebration of the Australian Racing Drivers Club's 70th year in operation. It started obviously back in 1952 and is still going strong today. I've got Lockie Mansell with start with, and Lockie, we had 2 races yesterday.
Opening race for the weekend for the National and New South Wales Sports Dance Championship, proudly brought to you by Precision International and Kumho Tyres this weekend. Gary O'Brien, a wet race 1 for the opening race of the weekend.
It certainly is. We've got round 4 of the National Series, round 4 of the State Series. They had separate qualifying sessions, and we got one of each on the front row. How good's that?
Absolutely brilliant. Of course, the 2 top guys from the last couple of rounds as well, so they're both looking to get championship points in their respective championships. Of course, Brad Shields a little bit out of it for the New South Wales Championship with a bit of a tough round last time out, and Caruso is looking to try to draw away from that man behind him, Tomasi, who leads the championship currently.
Yeah, it's Caruso in front, Tomasi behind him, and then on the left-hand side of the track as we look at it, it's Brad Shields and Andre Heimgartner behind him in the Duggan Family Hotels Aston Martin, Chev-powered. And of course we're underway, and look at the spray in the background as they go down to turn 1. They're gone side by side, and actually, if anything, Shields has put his nose in front. He leads as they head down towards turn 2. Caruso in second. Looks like Heimgartner may have got through to third, but into turn 2, and it's Caruso that gets back the lead.
Caruso and Shields side by side, the rest of the field behind. How good is it to see a huge field of sports dance? A bit of a sideways moment for Shields, which has gifted the position to Andre Heimgartner. But over 30 cars here this weekend, Gary. It shows the real resurgence in this country, this category.
Yeah, and look at this. Here's Heimgartner having a look at the lead as they get down to turn 4. Backs out of it slightly there to give him a bit of room. Caruso stays wide. Now they have the run to 5. Through 5 and then up to 6, and it's Caruso in front, but it looks like Heimgartner may have got a run on him. He has, and it's Andre Heimgartner that leads this as they go to turn 6 on the opening lap.
Look at the way that car as well on the downshifts, just popping both sides out, pushing the water away. It shows you how wet it is here at Sydney Motorsport Park for this opening race at the ARDC Super70. Of course, brought to you by Precision International and Kumho Tyre this weekend. Sports Sedans putting on a show, and Caruso as loose as it gets around the corporate hill.
Cold tyres, wet track, you're going to have traction problems, there's no doubt, but imperative to Heimgartner was to get out in front. No wipers on that car. He doesn't want the spray behind him. He's gone straight to the lead, just where he wants to be. Caruso, of course, needs to just maintain his position ahead of Steve Tomasi in third. There goes one of the marked cars. The marked cars are in an invited class this weekend, generally because they don't have some of the things that make them comply with sports sedans.
And then just look at this through the field as well. You've got a GTR that's come up from Tasmania. You've got out the outside Spiteri in a car that's effectively still a road-going car in many ways. A car that moves across the sports sedans. You've got Cox down the inside there in the Saab, which is just brilliant to see back out as well. So many cool cars down through the field trying to fight their way through. Of course, wet qualifying session really jumbled the pack up.
It certainly did, and Liam Hooper's really struggling here. Hasn't driven in the wet at Sydney Motorsport Park. We've seen him at Time Attack, but we haven't seen him in this car racing in this sort of company, and he's finding it very difficult at the moment. Steve Robertson going around the outside of him there. As just ahead of him we've got Rod Monahan in the car that was originally driven by Will Furcher, but with a different engine in it now, that red Monaro. And we look back further, we can see more action there. There goes the Kumho Tyres man himself, Dave Aiken, in the LS-powered BMW. And then we go back to this dice, back in the field.
Looking to the inside.
Monaro against Monaro. But one is a chassis car, one is a proper sports sedan. Look the same from the outside, but totally different underneath. Yeah. The engine is further back in the number 32 black car. The red car is basically a chassis car, a car that's been developed from a road car into a proper sports sedan.
Anyone who also has followed sports sedans for a long time will know that 32 grey Monaro of Michael Robinson. It's been yellow, it's been a couple of different varieties of colour, but it's won the 50k plate down at Phillip Island a few times. He drives through the field on occasion when he needs to, so he's a strong campaigner and he knows what he needs to do.
He certainly does. And then we see Nick Smith running in that green RX-7 that runs a Nissan Turbo engine. That is a proper space frame sports sedan. And Theo Camburis, who runs in Division 3 in New South Wales, qualified 11th, would you believe? Really liked the conditions.
Of course, Nick Smith as well, qualifying was effectively the first time he's driven that car in the rain, and the first time he's driven it since round 1 of the National Sports Sedans Championship earlier this year.
Here we've got Beryl Chetton and Steve Lacey. They're 1 and 2 in the New South Wales Sports Sedan Championship. Actually, it's Lacey who leads, and he wants to be in front of Chetton with a round to go after this. And it looks like he's going to get the job done down the straight. Unfortunately, Chetton had a drama at the last meeting, crashed in qualifying, didn't start. That's why Lacey is now leading that championship.
They've both had tough runs at different rounds this year, haven't they? And they're both looking to just collect as many of those points as they can. You'd have to say that over time we've seen as well, Beryl Chetton, like at Sydney Motorsport Park in the wet, the car just isn't quite as strong as we usually see it.
No, and then just behind them there we see Scott Cameron and Nick Smith, New South Wales competitors as well, although Scott has been doing the National Series. And the car started off green and black, it's now orange and black.
Orange and black. They're having a great run as well, just developing that car on and on and on and trying to build it up. Here's Axisa looking to the inside of Spiteri down the straight. And then we've got this big pack at the top of the hill as well. The different varieties of cars all together, just all the way through this field. There's battles everywhere. It's hard to know where to look. As now Nick Smith starts to work on the rear of Cameron. He's starting to find some pace, isn't he?
Yeah, Nick's had some niggly little problems go with that car, but once it goes, it's a jet. It's very quick in a straight line, as you would imagine with that RJ20 turbo engine somewhere under the front of it. Not quite at the front, sort of slotted back basically under the windscreen, isn't it?
It is. If anyone who doesn't know sports sedans, of course, with a space frame car, you're trying to get that even weight distribution. They pull the engine back behind the centre line of the front axle, all the way back under the windscreen to be able to get it comfortable. It's not comfortable for the driver, but it's a lot more comfortable for the car at speed and balance.
Yeah, the older space frame cars, the engine sits alongside the driver, but in the more modern cars, they seem to have pushed the engine a little bit further forward. Yeah. You look at the likes of Shane Woodman's BMW and Michael Robinson's Monaro, those cars are more forward. They've developed those cars. They run paddle shifts, they run traction control on them, can't run ABS, and that's something that the Mark cars have had to switch off for this weekend. They can't run their ABS. They still have a few other things that make them not aligned to sports sedans, as it were, but they're certainly the one car of the Mark variety that is a proper sports sedan now is the Nick Mantikos car, and he's actually doing pretty well in this race.
He's having a great time, and of course that car, brand new to him after more than a decade of running that Datsun 1600 with the SR motor and other variants of how he sort of powered it and turboed it and all sorts of things going on. And now he's stepped across into this Mark car, which he just says is like light and day between the two cars. He loved the Datsun, but he's finding a lot of enjoyment in that Mark car as well.
So we're looking at our leaderboard on the left there as we see Nick Smith on the back of Beryl Chetton. It's Heimgartner in front, Caruso second, Tomasi in third, then it's Shirls, Mason Kelly, son of Todd Kelly, in fifth spot, leading the Mark brigade, you might say, because there's quite a few of them here. Darren Curry, Jeff Taunton in the Mark II car, Mantikos just behind him, also in a Mark II car. Then we've got Lachlan Gardner in 9th position in his Mark I. And Ash Jarvis running the Cole Smith Monaro Chev is in 10th position.
Yeah, Jarvis had a tough run on Friday in practice. They had a few gremlins in that car with the wet weather. Of course, a lot of these cars as well, like the thing you can't forget is they're not like your road-going car. There's no seals. There's not a lot of open area for rain to just come in under the body. And of course, with the electronics and things they're trying to run, you can get water in the electrics and it just does not mix.
Well, the other thing to probably point out at this stage too is the fact that we've got two very basic sports sedans. When I say that, I don't mean that in a derogative sort of point of view, but Charlie Corey and Lachlan Godfrey are both running cars, are 2-litre cars, 2 Hondas as it turns out, and they're just outside the top 10.
Yeah, exactly.
Obviously the conditions are really suiting those cars.
That's it. That's the other thing we can't forget as well. There's Godfrey just in front of them. But the other thing we can't forget as well is it's so wet here for this race. A lot of these cars don't actually have a bank of wet weather tyres. They're hard to get tyres for these cars. They're unusual sizes, they're big sizes, and you don't often buy the wet weathers because you don't really need to run them that often.
Well, there's no tyre rule as far as wet weather tyres go. You can run whatever you can get hold of, so that's a good point about wet weather, because we don't do it that often. Well, you'd think so, but in Sydney the last couple of years, it's
2022 it's been raining all the way. But here's this battle continuing as Nick Smith has got himself to the back of Birrell Chetton, just not quite able to get past as we get to the midpoint of this race. And it looks like the Pro IT car is starting to feel a little bit more comfortable. You can see as well there, anyone who maybe hasn't seen sports sedans before, Chetton's car is left-hand drive. There's a fair few of the cars in the championship that are left-hand drive. You've got a bit of a mix now as we start to build a lot more cars in Australia by Australian design and all that sort of thing. But left-hand drive is sort of the spiritual home of space frame sports sedans, isn't it?
Yeah, look, Nick Smith looking to make a move. Being turbocharged, because you've got that light switch turn on of power that you've got to really moderate in these sorts of conditions. You don't want to have it come on too hard. And they're actually making ground on Godfrey there, which you'd think they should because they're far more powerful cars, but Godfrey's doing a great job to be in front of them.
When they came out for the start of this race, it was bucketing down with rain, and towards the midpoint of it, it's sort of eased off a little bit here at Sydney Motorsport Park. Of course, the ARDC Super70 event, make sure to get out trackside to see two more races from sports sedans across Sunday. We've got the GTR slowing down the inside there, so I would suggest that there's some sort of issue.
I think the problem there is just the conditions, just not suitable.
No, exactly.
And you think with being in Tasmania, that wouldn't be the drama, but he hasn't raced here in the wet, and that's the difference. And we can see the Mark cars doing a good job. They're really well suited to this. And I think that's the Gardner car, which is currently running in 10th position. Jarvis just behind him, and Jarvis has just gone out of shot at the bottom of the screen. I think one to watch.
I think Lacey just got past on that lap as well, because I saw a flash of green and red on the timing tower, which tells us that the positions have moved up and down, and it looked like Lacey just got that position. So it's been a good drive through the field for him.
We started 13th.
Yeah, this man in third, Tomasi. Not this man now.
That's Ben Mannix.
The black car.
That's an LS powered RX-7, so that's a little bit different. That's a chassis car. And by chassis, I mean it's still basically the car that the Mazda put out as a production model, but they've modified it quite substantially, whereas space frame cars are basically a full space frame under a silhouette type body.
As we see at the top of the hill, Brad Shields just switching away. This man at the centre of shot, that is Duggan from the Duggan Family Hotels team. He's running the ex-Perkins engineering Jack Daniels car, as you see a great shot of the side of it there. But he's the man who's allowed Heimgartner to come and race with us a few times this year, but offered the opportunity, offered his car, pride and joy. We've got a yellow flag.
Daniel Crompton off the road in the TA1 Ford Mustang. That is a car that built in Australia, but built basically to Trans Am specs that we have out of America. We only have a couple of cars.
Oh, no.
I don't think we're going to see him get out of there in a hurry by the look of it.
He's going to have to get out and let the tyre pressures down, because he's gone well wide, and unfortunately at that point of the grass it dips away rather heavily towards the wall, and you're up against the earth embankment that was built here around the track, so water just sits in that corner.
Well, we've seen Shane Bradman go off in qualifying in the same sort of manner and tried to clutch trying to get back out of that, so unfortunately he was a non-starter in this.
We've seen cars get bogged there in dry weather, Gary. That's how much water sits there, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's been so wet around Sydney of late that's the thing. There's our Precision National Sports Sedan Series leader at the moment. He's been doing it fairly comfortably apart from today, and now we see Heimgartner go down the inside of one of the lap cars.
He's just got to hold on here though. Caruso started to close the gap. There's Kakuri on the inside.
Oh, Caruso off.
Gone. He's made the gravel trap. That's been a huge moment.
Well, I'd say that he's tried to lap the same car that Heimgartner did, and maybe he didn't know he was there, or he went the wrong side. But unfortunately, he's going to lose the position at least. And Tomasi's gone to second, Shields to third. So this has been not what he wanted to do.
Oh, look at the mess. He's trying to get on as safely as he can, but also not lose as much time as possible. He'll need to be careful here, get on the brakes early, because what you'll find is you'll shoot straight off because there's mud and gravel and all sorts of stuff all over the tyres.
Well, everyone else will have to be a bit wary of the mud that he's brought on.
At least there's only a lap to go, but unfortunately for Caruso, that's just dropped him so far down the field. There's our leader, Heimgartner. So you can see he's coming over the crest as Heimgartner leaves turn 6. That's how much he's dropped from that little off-track excursion.
Well, Heimgartner's renowned for his wet weather efforts. I remember on the Gold Coast one year in one of the Brad Jones Racing Commodores that he did such a good job as the co-driver started a race and just shot away and left them all for dead. So he's quite adept in the wet weather, although like everyone else, they all agree that they don't like racing in the wet, but they do it because they have to.
Exactly.
And Andre Heimgartner comes out of turn 11 and heads down the straight, and he will win the first race of round 4 of the Precision International National Sports Sedan Series here at Sydney Motorsport Park as part of Super 70.
What a great race it was as well. We'll see Caruso drop down the order on the timing screen as he comes across the line. There we go, Heimgartner takes the checkered flag. We'll have to wait for the rest of the field to come through to see where everybody shakes out in the wash. Tomasi will pick up a few more of those championship points in the Precision National Sports Sedan Series.
Well, it looks like Caruso's got back to third spot, so he hasn't leaked that many points in reality, which is a good thing.
Absolutely brilliant effort there to be able to bring that back. You see Tomasi go up to second. There's Caruso across the line. Cameron is going to follow them home as well, though. I think he might have had an off-track because he's actually a long way down the field compared to where I probably expect him to be. Here comes Brad Shields around the top.
He'll be in 4th position.
First state car home and 4th national championship car home. So.
Exactly. And then Mason Kelly in 5th, Darren Curry in 6th, Jeff Taunton in 7th, Steve Lacey up to 8 from 13th. And then we've got Nick Mantikos in 9th position. Jarvis was in 10th, but I have a feeling he may have fallen off the track somewhere. He may have dropped back a bit. We just have to wait and see as our timing updates. I understand we're hearing that he may have had a spin at turn 8 on the last lap. Would you believe it?
Jeez. Never rains but it pours when you're going to have a tough weekend,
I think he just got ahead of Gardner at that stage as well. So we just wait.
Oh, there he is.
So he has had a lose there, and that's unfortunate. On the very last lap, when you think things are starting to warm up a bit and it's all starting to happen.
Be careful not to roll too far off the track there, Jarvis. It's very boggy in that section. Robinson's slowed as well here at the finish. I just saw a puff of white from the car. I wonder if he's locked up. We'll see. We'll know as soon as he gets on the straight. If he powers down, he'll be fine. But if he doesn't, he's a bit slow to get away, isn't he? So maybe he's had some sort of issue right at the line. And Chetton coming charging down the inside too. I don't know if that was actually for a position.
Will be 13th by the look of it.
Oh, Willem Furcher's got up to 10th place right at the line. I just saw the timing change. So absolutely brilliant result there for Furcher. And that's the opening race done for the Kumho Tyres New South Wales Sports Sedans Championship and the Precision International National Sports Sedans Championship here at Sydney Motorsport Park.
And so to all of the fathers and sons and daughters who are trackside here, hope you have a fantastic day enjoying all of the action right throughout.
And if you're one of the really lucky dads, you're out here today enjoying the motor racing if you're a petrol head.
And so 1 lap to go. To me, Jack Winter, 1 minute 51.8. He was over 2 seconds quicker than Dimitri Agathos that last time through. So this race not over yet by any stretch of the imagination. It's only a second and a half separating positions 1 and 2 on the racetrack at this stage.
So, yeah, as they head off on their final lap, we will see that gap is down to 1.16 seconds now. So Winter is actually closing and making a race of this.
Yeah, he's absolutely flying at the moment, Jack Winter. He took another 0.4 of a second out of Dimitri Agathos through Sector 1. So going to be interesting to see if Winter can mount a last-ditch challenge or if Agathos can hold on and continue his winning streak. The two Evos have dropped further away. They're now 6.8 seconds in arrears. As we see, Sewell still ahead of follows, but not by much. He's right on him down the inside into turn number 8 goes Jack Winter. This is going to be a... Yeah, they're out of turn 8, heading up towards the top of the track, turn 9.
and then the run down to the checkered flag.
Agathos has just managed to hold on. They've got a couple of laps cars that they're going to have to negotiate in this last couple of corners. Oh, Brent Howard in a very awkward position, but just steps out of the way. Who gets the better run onto the straight? It's going to be a drag race between Jack Winter and Dimitri Agathos down to the finish line. Agathos on the inside, Jack Winter taking the high line. There's the laps VW that gets in an awkward position for Jack Winter. And so it is going to be, as they come across the finish line, wowee, super close, 0.1 of a second separating Dimitri Agathos from Jack Winter at the line.
You've got to say that Jack Winter might not be happy about where that Volkswagen was coming out of the final turn. It sort of left him snookered, really, didn't it?
It sure did. It just catching up to that VW at the worst possible time. Had to get out of the throttle and pull to the inside. So Agathos, he looks to have the race shot to pieces at the halfway point, but Winter came home very strong at the end as the track got less wet. Matt Boylan comes home in third position ahead of Chris Sutton. And then a huge gap, over a minute, that we have to wait for Anthony Sewell to come through as the first of our Class X cars in position 5.
Well, he was a couple of seconds up the road from Stewie Follows, who for a while looked like he was catching the BMW, but I think in the last lap or so, Sewell has been able to put the head down and just pull that gap again. Well, that's it for Production Touring Cars this morning. They're back on track this afternoon for a longer race. It is a round of their club championship, not a round of the state championship, as you alluded to earlier, Lockie. We look forward to having you back for that later on. And in the meantime, we're going to take a quick break. We've got historic touring cars under 2 litre, and it's a big field as well. So they're separate from the big boys, and we look forward to seeing them on track.
Yes, it is connected.
I was just going to move it away from me, so let me know when I can disconnect the mic and move it.
Well, we're back with the first historic touring car races. I've got John Young alongside me to have a bit of a chat about these cars. He's an aficionado of all old style cars, even if they're not production sports cars, they're historic touring cars. Happy Father's Day to you, mate.
And to you.
And it's good to have you out here and just having a bit of a chat about historic touring cars and under 2 litre cars. And we know that the 2 Colton cars that were very prominent yesterday, the Chris Colton Mini and the Anthony, or Will, as he's more readily known, later in the Cortina, were right up the front of the grid.
Well, it's perfect weather for an under 2 litre touring car, isn't it?
It is, and keep an eye out too, I think, for Tom Tweedy. Tom Tweedy's running a Cooper S. He's been involved in Formula V, he's raced in the development series, he's been at the wheel of some a Chevron B20/24 Formula 5000. To get into a Mini, it's like taking him back to his father's youth, I guess, because Rob Tweedy raced Minis before he got involved in Falcon Sprints and what have you. So it's interesting. They're still getting their head around learning it. Unfortunately, I don't think we've got Andrew Bergen in number 12, the Blue Mini, who probably would have been at the head of this field.
He'd be right up front, wouldn't he?
Yeah, had some dramas in qualifying. I know they towed the car back, and I didn't catch up with him as to what the problem was, but he didn't start yesterday's races, so I assume he's out. But When they say it's an under 2 litre car and you see E.H. Holdens out there, I start to question maybe it's under 3 litre.
Under 2 litre unless you're an earlier car, maybe. Yeah.
Well, it certainly, they're all basically NB cars apart from the David Noakes Escort, which is an NC car. NC cars are cars that are built from 1965 through to 1972, and they can be either cars that raced in the Improved Production Car Championship or in series production, but they're built to a common set of rules.
And what great cars they are to race too. Nice to see a couple of VHs. There's a couple of VHs out there, which is good.
It's good that they're in this field because they'll probably be really outgunned in over 2 litre.
Well,
field.
with the big V8s and things out there, they may well be lapped. So they're all forming up now.
Yeah, so as you can see, lots of minis. It's almost a super mini race. And you remember a few years ago, we did have a mini race here with lots of minis involved. And I think that was on the Brabham circuit, if memory serves me right. It might have been that year.
Yes, could be too. So I guess we're waiting now for the green flag.
Yeah, Colton on the front row, Noakes and Tweedy on the second row. And behind them it will be Paul Battersby and
green flag's been waved. The 5-second board's out and in again.
Yep, light start and away they go. And someone hasn't moved very much at all right down the back of the field, but does get going. And it's Will Colton who will lead the way. It looks like Noakes has gone to second. Tweedy and Chris Colton fighting over third, and it looks like Chris Colton has done a better job there. Chris Du Bois in his Escort, not the same sort of Escort as the one that's in second spot, which is, of course is an RS 1600. I think Chris's car's a 1300, not quite to the same spec, and we've got more minis coming through. A gaggle of minis, you might say. It's a very good word for them.
It is. Du Bois has been racing this thing for a while now.
He had a Ford Anglia before that. You might remember back in those days. Raced that for a long, long time. Involved in the Appendix J club for many, many years as a technical director, and also did other roles on the committee there for many a year. And at the moment he's under a bit of pressure from the Bat Mac. You can see the number plate on that car, which is Paul Battersby in the number 271 Mini, who goes around outside of him as they head up over the rise there towards turn 6.
That was a pretty good move in that particular spot.
It certainly was, and one of the front-running minis that we have running around. David Wheatley's another long-time Appendix J member in his Mini. He's the next one in the queue, he should be anyway, and then we've got Burns and David Roberts, another long-time Appendix J guys. And of course the Appendix J club was formed on the basis that they were reviving Appendix J, which is the pre-64 cars and built to the specs of the day. Basically any car that raced around the world could be built to Appendix J or K specification and run in the races. It's basically started about 1981, I think, the Appendix J Club, and it's just taken off from there. It's been the forerunner, I guess, or the trigger that got us right up to what we call Touring Car Masters now. Change of lead down the straight. David Noakes passing Will Colton, and that's pretty much expected. NC car out in front, NB cars basically make up the rest of the field, and right at the back we've got some of the bigger Holden EH's bigger engine, but probably not quite suitable for these conditions. So there's, if you look on the left, we've got our timing screen. We've got the two Coltons, second and third, 24 Battersby, and then in fifth spot is Lenstra in another of the Cortinas, followed by Wheatley, and then the 114 is the next car after that. And
meanwhile, Jeff Pike just under Waddington in the Jeff Pike in the Mini, going underneath Waddington, coming into turn 2. A nice little move there.
There's a Pike that ran in Group S. Was that
same bloke?
Same bloke.
Same bloke. He's still got the Group S MGB, and he sort of brings one out to one meeting and one to the other.
Oh, nice to be able to switch cars when you feel like having a run in something different.
Absolutely.
Or Cortinas back in the field. Of course, we've got Lotus Cortinas, then we've got Cortina GTs. And, of course, if you've got a Lotus Cortina, I don't know if you really want to race it these days. They're worth too much money.
I know, and that's what Peter Ferguson's doing in 37.
Here we see Du Bois going through ahead of Wheatley. And then we've got Burns and the number 20 of David Roberts, the next two through. 37, of course, is not on my list, which is nowhere. Peter Ferguson, we were talking about him, son of Barry. Actually went for laps of Warwick Farm many years ago in a Cortina driven by Barry Ferguson. Had to hold on to the roll cage, didn't have a seat.
Oh, seats are unnecessary luxury. Barry's still involved as an official in classic rallies.
Yeah. You know, back in those days you could get away with things like that. You couldn't on a drive day now, of course.
No.
More minis going too. There's Burns and Roberts. Of course, minis were very much the basis of Appendix J, and of course, following on the success, I guess, of the 1966 Bathurst 500.
Yes.
Where they filled the first 9 positions.
I saw Laurie Stewart overtake me on the way home last night, who raced a lot of BMC stuff back in the day. Now, Peter Ferguson coming down to have a sniff of getting up a spot.
Because the Cortina GT should be a little bit quicker in a straight line than a Mini, I would gather, but it certainly wouldn't have the handling attributes of the brick.
No, but gee, they were a good thing.
So it still notes out in front by about 2.5 seconds over Will Colton or Anthony, depending on, obviously he's called Will, but Anthony is what he's entered under.
Go figure.
Yeah, Chris Colton in third spot, Tweedy, Battersby, Lenstra, Wheatley, Burns, then Dave Roberts, Peter Ferguson, Jeff Pike currently running in 11th position, Dave Warrington in 12th position. Chris Dubois has dropped back a few spots, so he must have had a drama out of our sight somewhere. He's back in 13th.
Peter Ferguson being very brave around the outside in the very valuable Lotus Cortina.
Well, I think we mention this often on a wet track, that the go-kart line is the line, so you take the wide run and miss the apex where there's less water on the track on the outside of the circuit. And I think they stick to that really regularly in these conditions. Hasn't rained for a while, but as you can see, still a lot of water on the track.
Yeah, particularly turn 8. It's definitely the wide line wins on a wet day.
Yeah, because we have the corner sloping inwards, I guess, and we can see Ferguson now trying to make a move on Wheatley and gets the job done. So
he's really moved up a lot of spots since the start of this race.
Yeah, certainly. I remember when Bob Pearson was running his latest Cortinas, they were beating the V8s for a long time there. They were very strong cars. He had 3 of them at one stage and actually let some other people drive them at times as well. But coming down the straight, so now we've got this Chris Dubois will be the next one on the target list.
Yeah, I mean that's been an epic drive from a fairway.
So that's Lenstra in the 14 in a similar car to the Chris Dubois one. Actually looks quite similar too. I may have called Chris in that car earlier, but it is actually Lenstra in the Escort. So you would think that the latest Cortina would be a little bit stronger than the Escort.
Well, the conditions are a little bit drier this morning than they might have been when they were out yesterday, and with a progressive grid, you can upset the order. It's almost like a reverse grid site race sometimes, the way the things pan out.
Well, it depends. With a wet qualifying, they could have been further down the order, and I would imagine that they've gone off qualifying to set the grid, because yesterday they actually they raced with the over 2 litre cars, so and there were a couple of good races.
Good point. Yep.
So they would have split them, because they're split up into under and overs. They would have certainly gone back to qualifying. But no one's getting near David Noakes at this point of the race. He's 3.7 seconds up the road. We're on the 4th lap, and there'll be another 4 after this one, 8-lap journey. And he actually took a bit of a tight line out of turn 7 and almost got the tail out.
But out very wide coming through turn 8, and he's closed right up on Litre, who gets the tail out, and that's just opened the door for Peter Ferguson to pick up yet another spot. And moves up to 6th.
And that adequately describes his even more strife at turn 9 there too, that the wide line is the line to take under these conditions. Mark Leinster, I think there's another Leinster in the field as well, but Mark Leinster is the one that's in the first of the cars, and you can see Battersby's on his own well down the track. Ahead, Tweedy in 4th, the 2 Colletons in 2nd and 3rd, and Noakes is out to 5.8 seconds. So obviously would have had his dramas in qualifying yesterday, but certainly put that behind him today to move out into commanding lead. And then we've got another about 8 seconds, just under 8 seconds to the 3rd place car of Colleton. More action here with the Darren Burns Mini and the number 20, Dave Roberts. Dave Roberts has been part of the Penix J for quite a while as well. And then we've got the 7, Jeff Pike, in another of the minis.
Dave Roberts used to run a Hillman Imp in this class.
Well, Leinster, one of the Leinsters raced a Hillman Imp as well.
I think it was Dave who had one. Yeah, indeed, the Leinsters. That was Jerry Leinster, I think, had the Imp. I'll never forget Dave Roberts being very helpful to me one day when my car was brought back on a trailer at Wakefield Park.
Oh, okay.
And I was driving an old MG, and I was dicing with Dave, and some of the sports car guys were a little bit doubtful about racing with Group N. They thought they might have been a bit overbrave, but I've got to say that I've never found them to be, so I always enjoyed it immensely.
Tom Tweedy having a bit of a moment out of turn. I think that wasn't a moment, that was just having fun.
Could be.
But he did tell me at the historic meeting back here in June that getting used to these cars was a lot different to what he's driven in the past. Front-wheel drive to start with, a Mini, of course, but he would have a fair bit of guidance from his dad, Rob, because Rob drove these cars for a long time. And certainly very similar coloured car to what Rob drove in the day as well. Not the same car, no doubt, but yeah, getting used to these cars, and you can see he's really working the brakes hard there. The car gets very squirrely, and he may see the target just ahead of him. It might be making him try a little bit harder with Chris Colton just up the road. And obviously getting used to a new style of car and new style of racing, and then having to come out and do it in the wet just makes it all that more arduous.
And having been used to things like that Formula 5000, where you just give the thing bags of horsepower down the straight and see what happens.
Well, I think that car still has the outright lap record at Sandown.
Does it really?
Even the S5000s haven't quite touched that mark, so there's no doubt that Tom Tweedy can drive a car, and he's driven the MR8 McLaren as well that the family has, and he does that quite proficiently also. But stepping back into a Mini is must be a bit of a shock to the system, I would have thought.
Sure must.
There's
talk about a wide line.
Yeah, Will Colton, he might pick up a 5-second penalty for that, because you're not supposed to go out there.
I don't think he intended to go out there.
I don't think anyone does, but when you've got the race face on, those things happen. So we are coming up to the conclusion of the 6th lap. There'll be 2 to go after that, and I think our race leaders have gone through. Or have they? No, just Noakes has just gone past the start-finish line as we speak. This is turning into a pretty good dice back here with these 3 minis all together. At the moment it's trying to see who is who in the zoo. There's Leinster ahead, then Wheatley, and then it's the 3 that we're talking about, Pike, Burns and Roberts, all making a good fist of what's been a fairly entertaining race amongst
there's been a lot of good racing in the field.
Yeah. Well, the good thing about we're getting an opportunity to see some of the racing down the field. We know that Noakes has gone out to 12.8 seconds in front. There's nothing much to see out there from a point of view of a dice, but certainly back in the field we're getting some good little racing going on, and there's Burns pushing to the limit, and you can see they're pushing to the limit because they're correcting all the time under these conditions.
A lot of frantic steering. Well, here we go. Here's a bit of a challenge for the third.
It's Colton under all sorts of pressure from Tweedy. Tweedy exploring all sorts of different lines to try and find a way past.
He
Can
sure
he do
is.
it? And he's going very wide on the corners, more so than what Chris Colton does, and it's benefited him as well. But is he on the right side of the circuit for this run up to turn 6? He is. He's on the correct side. That's the left side, of course. And he might get the job done into turn 6. He does so. Can Chris Colton come back with anything now to try and wrestle third spot back on this will be the penultimate lap of this race. He's very wide at all the corners, isn't he?
He's worked
Tom
that
Tweedy?
out really
Yep.
well, Tom Tweedy. He's a very good steerer and just shows you can put a good driver into a
Anything.
completely different car
Yep.
and away they go.
I don't think Colton's finished with this yet. He's trying to get back onto him, and will a slipstream for one of these work coming down the main straight?
Yes, does a brick create a slipstream? I'm not sure about that.
Well, one brick to another, I don't know. And actually, if anything, Tweedy's got a little bit of a gap on him. Probably
Yeah.
about 2 car lengths coming out of turn 11 onto the straight for the penultimate time.
Well, it did look as if Colton was getting a little closer there, but the reality was that right out there on the edge, Tweedy was in the fast lap, and they're coming up to lap the Volvo 122.
One of your favourite cars in this field, and Chris Colton had a bit of a look, popped out of the slipstream, and
I like those old Volvos.
there's been a few Volvos running around in Appendix J racing or Group N historic touring cars. We see there's a couple of guys from Canberra that had some reasonably quick cars in this category.
There was Vince Harmer ran a 164, which
Yep.
was an unlikely car to, I would have thought.
The
to
very
race.
one I was talking about, actually.
Yeah.
Sounded beautiful.
Yes, it did.
6-cylinder?
Yeah.
Yep. Small 6-cylinder, but
And friends of mine were 6th outright in the Peking to Paris a couple of years ago in a 144 behind Porsches and Zeds.
yes. Now we're watching this final time as they run up to turn 6. Tom Tweedy heading up. Chris Colton. And is Chris Colton now under any sort of threat from behind? No, certainly not at this stage.
No, it's Chris Colton and daylight. There's half a minute back to Battersby.
Yeah, it's a long gap there. Here's our race leader coming up to the last series of corners for the last time. It's David Noakes in that RS 1600 Ford Escort, and he's made it look quite comfortable in the end.
Yeah.
Assumed he got the conditions right for this one, and he will come down to take the checkered flag for the under 2 litre outing for Group N historic touring cars, and you can see it's a big gap back to what will be Will Colton in the Cortina. He comes out onto the straight now, heads down towards the checkered flag. Been a pretty good race, and of course we know that Tom Tweedy, if he holds it all together, will be in third position. There is a battle going on here between Battersby
And Peter Ferguson.
And Ferguson.
I was wondering, I didn't think he was going. There was about a 6-second gap 3 laps ago.
Well, he will probably get him before the end of this by the look of it. He might even get him before turn 9. He's got a good run out of 8 and does get through on this, the last lap. So
That's been a really good race for Peter Ferguson, I must say. And he's using all the track, but all the track that he's allowed to use. So
Yes.
that's fantastic.
Yeah,
that was a
and-
really good pass.
It was, and his latest Cortina in the traditional colours, the white with the green.
Well, you couldn't have anything else, could you?
Well, it's a Colton car, the yellow and green. It's a bit different. But anyway, there's our positions coming down to the checkered flag, and you'll see that position 5 goes to Peter Ferguson, 6 will go to Battersby, then it's Leinster, Wheatley, Pike, and Burns into 10th spot. We're going to have a break, and then we'll be back with more very shortly.
been interesting. It's been good. Had a good test day yesterday, and then into the weekend now. It's very, very wet, so trying to keep warm with a coffee. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting experience. I think these cars in the wet are a handful, lots of power, and yeah, just trying to get that to the ground makes life interesting.
Is the spray a big problem if you're not starting up the front?
Yeah, for sure it will be, and especially on most of these cars we don't have windscreen wipers, so it'll make life very interesting. Well, hopefully we win the race, but we'll wait and see. There's some tyre stuff going on with just trying to get on the right tyre because we can run whatever brand we want in the wet. So, yeah, we're just trying to resolve that now. Hopefully we have that sorted and we can have a good race. So.
Currently leading the Kumo Tyres New South Wales Sports Sedan Championship, but mixing it with the big boys this weekend. Steve Lacey, how's it going?
Yeah, look, it's going pretty well, actually. Obviously, the weather's not playing kind to us, but apart from that, yeah, it's a great opportunity having the national guys and the state guys all together. It's a fantastic field, 38 cars, full field for Sydney Motorsport Park. So we're looking forward to a good weekend.
I imagine the spray were pretty horrendous back in the field.
Yeah, the spray was. I mean, I went out there behind Brad and I thought I'll back off a little bit and let him some space, which then meant Billy banked up behind me. So then I let Billy through. And then after, I didn't know who was behind me. It was that bad. So I just sort of played around on my own.
Well, we wish you all the best for not only amongst the national boys, but also in the state championship this weekend.
Excellent. Appreciate that. Thanks. Cheers, guys.
Yeah, that was a lot more fun than I was anticipating. I think I've only sort of driven this in the on slicks in the wet, and I was sort of blown away by how much grip the wets had. So, no, it was heaps of fun. I was just sort of trying to push my limits without overstepping it. But, yeah, heaps of fun and happy to be on pole.
With a win this weekend, that'd pretty well wrap the series up for you?
With the way the point system is, it sort of only takes one bad race to lose quite a lot of points. So the main thing is going to be finishing and consistency. So it's sort of not really over till it's over. So we've got to stay consistent, keep finishing.
The wet weather that we've had this morning seems to have dissipated the field somewhat. How do you treat that? Do you think they'll come back to you a bit more in the race?
It's interesting. I think as people sort of get more used to the wet, the field will probably close up a bit, but I've just got to sort of focus on myself and hopefully with the pace that we've got, just not make mistakes and hopefully hold on to the lead.
Well, Sports Sedans out on track. Position International National Sports Sedan Series Round 4. Kumo Tyres New South Wales Sports Sedan Championship round 4 as well. Big question here, Daniel Beckensdale, who's brave enough to go out on a set of slick tyres? I doubt anyone will.
You'd have to be incredibly brave to choose the slicks at this moment in time. For anyone who's not at the circuit, the weather is moving through pretty quickly with little showers. We've got sunshine overhead at the moment. Of course, the end of that Group N race, we saw it bathed in sunshine down through turns 1 and 2, but it's going to be a great race yet again for the National and New South Wales Sports Sedans combined here at the ARDC Super70 event. A fantastic celebration of many years of motorsport, and many years of motorsport at this circuit now as well. Just taking a look at the starting grid, and it's Andre Heimgartner who leads the way. Of course, we saw him snatch the lead in the opening stages of yesterday's race, and he just never looked back in the wet.
Yeah, Jordan Caruso unfortunately had an off down to turn 1 on the last lap, and at least he recovered fairly quickly and only allowed Daniel Tomasi to get past him. So Tomasi's pulled a couple of points back on him in the championship series. Obviously, Caruso led coming into this round. He still does. And then, of course, Brad Shields, the first of the local state championship guys. He's not in contention for that championship. They've had some dramas throughout the season. He finished fourth. Mason Kelly did an awesome job in the Mark 1 to be in 5th spot, just ahead of Darren Curry. Jeff Taunton in the Mark 2 is the next one. Steve Lacey made up spots. He came from 13th to 8th, so that's been a good effort. Nick Mantikas, he's in a Mark 2 car, but that is full sports sedan spec rather than a Mark car as such, which has some differences. Some of the end plates and that aren't aligned, and the exhaust system's not coming out in the right spot. But the Mark cars have to take their ABS off.
Yep.
They can still hold their traction control. So further back in the field, we go back to Will Percher, who did a good job to get into the 10 right on that last lap. That's a Toyota 86 with a LS under the bonnet. That car was a time attack car originally until Will got hold of it and put the LS out of his Monaro, which is now the Rod Moynihan car, into the Toyota, and that's been a good thing. That at the opening round of the New South Wales Championship was the overall winner, but with Scott Cameron at the wheel. Scott Cameron, of course, is in the car. We can see coming through there the 111 VS Commodore, old school NASCAR type engine, 5.7 litre rather than the 6 litre. And we look back to more cars here. There's a lot of cars out of position because it was very wet yesterday.
Yep.
So expect to see some of those back cars move up. And I bet you there's a lot of people they're very happy that it isn't the conditions that we had yesterday.
I mean, I think I'm very happy it's not the conditions from yesterday. These cars are fantastic anytime, but just when it gets a little bit drier, of course, is when we start to see the real peak speed from them. Lloyd Godfrey on screen there in the Futura Trailers Honda Integra.
How good a job did they do yesterday in those conditions? He
Punching
and
so
Charlie
far
Curry,
above his weight. Hey?
Yeah, Charlie Curry and his Honda Civic was well up too. They were basically about 11th or 12th at some stages. They were that far up the field. Ash Jarvis, you had to feel a bit sorry for, spun at turn 8 on the final lap when in 10th position, lost a couple of spots. There he is in the Cole Smith Monaro Chev. The number 44 coming through picture there. Shane Woodman, I reckon he's looking forward to this race as well. I had a chat to him earlier today, and he was just hoping that the weather conditions will be better. They are, but you don't know here. It's very cold.
No.
That's for sure. Very cold for this time of the year. We were saying to John Young earlier that very unseasonal weather for Sydney for the first weekend of spring.
September. Yeah. It's definitely going to be a thing that challenges all of these cars. The combination's going to be, of course, these cars will like the cold weather for the motor and the horsepower output, but won't like it for the way you can turn on the tyres, get traction to the ground, any of those sort of things. There's Jarvis, who we saw spin out of turn 8 on the last lap yesterday, taking his mark.
Pointing just ahead to Nick Smith in a Nissan Turbo-powered Mazda RX-7. Did a great job. He got to the end. They've had a lot of niggly problems with that car, but when it goes, it does go. Here we are lined up. They're going to have a start on this way through. Heimgartner got to the lead early yesterday. He wanted to be out in front. It doesn't have a wiper on that car, and he said, if I'm in front, I don't have to worry about spray. And there was a fair bit of spray in behind him, but this will be the important part. Steve Tomasi will want to hold on to second position if he can and try and get back more points off Jordan Caruso.
Just look at this field of sports sedans, showing how alive and well this category is. There's new cars coming online. We've got some cars that are freshly debuting this season as well. It's a long roll down to the start line. Heimgartner launches To the inside goes Taunton. Caruso looks like he's going to try for the lead, and Heimgartner gets swamped into turn 1. He's back to 4th place.
Brad Shields up the second, Caruso third. Then we've got Taunton. He's made a good
Woodman's
start.
off.
Woodman's off down the escape road. He probably thought discretion was the better part of valor. So we've got this situation where Tomasi in front, Caruso second, Shields, then Heimgartner would have had wheel spin, I would imagine. But what about that noise coming down the straight the first time? That's brilliant.
You can't go past. We've got a yellow flag here at 2. Dave Atkin facing the wrong way in the Prime Race Tyres car, BMW.
He's the one who supplies the Kumo tyres. Of course, probably not supplying too many today because of the wet conditions and open tyre rule for wets. And then because...
Steve Lacey's gone. Turn 5 sideways. He's tried to keep it on the track. He's right on the racing line there on the corner exit, so everyone will need to be careful moving to the inside, and the Lederer car plummets through the field. I don't think he's... I would question whether he's had an issue there. He has. He's stopped.
I mean, maybe he's got punches on that right-hand side of the car.
He might have popped the wheel. Oh, someone else is in the wall behind him as well. We've got a car in the wall just behind, so not sure what's happened there. And out in front, the leaders have all come together, but I think we may well end up with a safety car here. Brad Shields has dropped back halfway through this lap.
Jordan Caruso's just got through the front. Will he get there? No safety car as yet. So Jordan Caruso gets to the lead. Tomasi in second. Heimgartner right in this fight as well in third position. Let's hope we've got Liam Hooper off out of turn 7 in the 4-wheel drive.
The rain has come back in, Gary. That's the issue.
It's raining again.
Look at this. Yes. So we've got wet weather comes straight across the circuit. We did the warm-up lap in the dry. Of course, the circuit was wet, but you can see now the spray's starting to kick up more and more, and I would say that these drivers, unfortunately, when you go out cold tyres first lap and it looks dry, you approach everywhere a little bit quicker, and then you find that it's all wet and greasy. Across the line for the first time, Caruso leads the way. He's got almost half a second on Tomasi, who, of course, was side by side with him into that complex. The final complex, and now we've got through the field the Mark cars all together. They're trying to chase down Brad Shields for 4th place in the race.
Yeah, Taunton now ahead of the Mark 1 cars. He was behind them in the race yesterday, but as you can see, it's raining around the track at the moment, and I think Brad Shields is one who's probably suffering the most at the moment as he gets harassed by these cars.
Look at the twitch up the hill.
Lacey seems to have moved his car, so that's good.
There's still definitely a car in the wall there on the left. There it is, the Mark car. I can't quite spot the number and which one it is, but there's a yellow flag through that section, so it's stuck. It'll be bogged, no doubt, on the exit of turn 5.
Into the tyres there as well.
Yeah. Just look at Brad Shields trying to take the go-kart line as wide as he can around Corporate Hill. Here goes
Kelly
Mason
down
Kelly.
the inside, trying to get that job done, and a bit of a touch there, I think. It's probably helped Brad Shields a bit as well to get the run out of that corner. And we've got Heimgartner on the back of Tomasi as they come out of turn 11, and Heimgartner going for the high line and onto the straight. And then we've got this great 4-way battle. One Fiat 124 Coupe with a twin-rotor turbocharged power plant under the bonnet. They've got Coyote powered cars.
Oh, that's not going to go well.
And Kelly's gone wide out of the turn.
He's
11.
off. He's just ploughing through the mud, unfortunately. Look at that. He's just dropped all the way down the field. So he'll have to be careful of this next group, and he'll have to be careful of his tyres down in turn 1.
Well, I think he's only lost one spot out of that.
He probably stayed with it a little bit too much, rather than just lifting off and making sure he stayed on the track in these conditions. And of course,
in the meantime, Heimgartner through to second, Tomasi in third. The gap is 4.5 seconds between Heimgartner and Caruso.
Caruso's put the head down, hasn't he, and just taken off here. He's obviously feeling the conditions. He was quite comfortable after qualifying with the wet conditions in that car, and I think he just probably didn't expect to lose the lead of the race in the early stages to Heimgartner, and maybe just tried a little bit too hard. There's that car in the wall. It's 55. So no doubt we'll stay under local yellows through turn 5.
That's Frank Mamarella from Queensland in that car that's stuck off the road there. And I'd say he's probably had a little bit of wall contact. Still, Shields defies all attempts from Taunton for him to get past. Darren Curry, the next one in the queue there, wanting to do. Can he do it now? He's on the inside out of turn 7. And Shields now leaves himself a little bit suspect unless he can get wide to get into that karting line out of turn 8. he still manages it, but he's got that turbocharger, which is like a light switch. It comes on, and you've got to manage that. You just can't gently feed the throttle with a turbocharged
You
car.
can see the way the car just twitches under throttle. He'll get halfway down the back straight and break into wheel spin. You can see him soaring at the wheel here through the final complex. Taunton looks to the inside. There's not much of a move for him to be able to do there. And he'll have to sit in behind again in this excellent second race for the Precision International National Sports Sedans with the Kumho Tyre New South Wales Sports Sedans here at the ARDC Super 70 event. We can just see at the top of the straight as well, the next battle pack. It looks like Chetton is starting to come through and chase down Jarvis, which is not the 10th place in the race.
A great advocate for wet weather racing.
No, he doesn't love it.
Struggles a lot in those wet weather conditions.
And
he's currently in 8th spot.
Yep,
Lockie Gardner in behind him. Kelly back to 10th. Well, actually, he dropped another spot there. Mentikos has got past him.
Yep. So come down into turn 1. You can see here that is Willem Furcher, who's coming under pressure from Gardner behind in another marked car. So it's almost everywhere you look, there's another battle with a marked car in it. We've got grass all over the road at turn 3 as well. So when cars slip off here in these conditions, they're just dragging muck back on. So the drivers need to be aware of that. It's stopped raining again. Furcher's got the wiper going, but it doesn't look to be as drizzly out there as it was at the starting of this race.
That's the spray coming off the road that's causing the wipers to be going. And as they said after the race yesterday, the boys said there was a lot of them out grass cutting.
Yep.
There we get a shot of the grass.
Yep. Unfortunately, we go to Brad Shields now. No, we're down to turn 1.
And Hoop has got his thing going again, but he's right back battling with John Spiteri in the improved production base Evo 6.
Yep. Brilliant battles all the way through the field here in this combined Sports Sedans
and Dave
Championship class.
Got himself back on track. He's the Kumho Tyre supplier for the New South Wales Sports Sedan Championship.
And a long-time supporter of the category as well. Loves his Sports Sedans. Been working for a little while to get that BMW up to the pace where they expect it to be, and I think they're starting to get there. I also see in front of this group Woodman just disappearing out of shot, so he got back on track obviously after that off-track excursion on lap 1. And here's Cox and Cameron and Monaghan in a great little battle. Where are they in the field? 17th, 18th, 19th. So goes to show you can't pick where in the field you need to be to see a battle here.
Yeah, we've got a Dodge-powered Saab, Chev-powered Commodore, and an LS-powered Monaro all running together. Very different sorts of cars. The Monaro is the chassis-based car. The two other cars in the frame there are space frame cars, and the Commodore, the one at the back, is probably the oldest one, although Coxie's thing is not exactly new, but been around a while, and very different sounding NASCAR-based Dodge engine. And certainly the Cameron Commodore is very old school. Was under a cover for quite a few years, and last year they decided to bring it back out and have a bit of racing in it. And I must say they've really enjoyed their stint so far. They've been to all the national rounds, and as well as last year doing the state championship.
Seems like he's struggling with you. Oh, Nick Smith has gone in and collected the marked car at turn 5. I just saw him off the side of the track there. There's damage to the rear of both of those cars now. So unseen to us, unfortunately, Nick Smith has also made it off in that area of the circuit as Steve Lacey moves past. Yeah.
Put the mocker on him by saying he's having a trouble-free run. It's unfortunate. There's Theo Camburis has been one that's surprised. A Division 3 car, a space frame car, but not what you say the quickest car in divisions have worked out on their lap times. And there you see, damage to the back of the Mazda, where unfortunately he's obviously got on the power a little bit early out of turn 5. And
the problem is how breezy it is out of there. Yeah. It's very, very easy to do. Now here's Steve Lacey, who we saw, of course, have that moment on lap 1. I think he might have just, in the process of trying to save it, got himself out of gear and mixed up where he was, and trying to save all that. Lloyd Godfrey feeling the need to get some go.
Know where that was going for a minute.
That looked a lot closer on the camera than I'm sure it was in real life.
Yeah, Lloyd Godfrey obviously went over there not only searching for moisture, but to make sure he got out of the way of the much faster Chev Camaro coming through. Steve Vigers built car. And Steve Vigers looks after that one still.
Yep, 14th in the race at the moment. Chasing down, well, 13th now. He passed him after the line, so it might take a little bit for our timing tower to catch up with that one, just how it reads the data. But Steve Lacey now up to 13th place in the race and chasing down in front of him Mantikos, who is holding down 12th.
Of course, in a sports sedan spec mark car, because that car's basically is a sports sedan now. They've made the changes they've had to do to it. And they're a great looking car, the Mark IIs, aren't they, in the Mustang style body shape they have. And now you can see Lacey moves up on the inside of him out of turn 6 up into turn 7, and will take that spot over. So unfortunate that he had that drama on the opening lap, because I dare say he could have been as high as perhaps 6th position if he'd have kept it all together. And I can see that on our timing that Taunton did get past Brad Shields somewhere around the track. And even then, you can see that Lloyd Godfrey, even though his car's not up to those spec, doesn't lose a lot of time in these conditions. And he could be a threat to passing Mantikos before the end of it. Because Mantikos came out of Division 2 in a Datsun 1600. Very different animal he's got under his right foot now in this smart car.
And I think the problem that everyone's going to start having now is, of course, there's areas of the circuit now that are starting to dry out. You can see a dry line semi-forming in some spots between corners and corner entries. But the unfortunate thing, of course, is in these conditions, with so many people using things like go-kart lines or alternate routes around corners, you don't actually get a uniform drying of the circuit as it happens. So you'll find yourself on a greasy part of track that you might have been lulled into thinking was a bit more grippy than it actually is, because other people aren't using that bit of the circuit.
Well, if we get a shot of the main straight to see if cars are chasing the wet part of the circuit, which is the inside of the track. Be interested to see if it is in fact drying at all, but the cold weather's not helping.
Brad Shields showing us all a drift session through Corporate Hill and out of the hairpin there.
I think the turbo must have just kicked in at that point, and that's what happens. There's Kelly in behind him, so Kelly's picked up a few spots there. Well,
he's gathered it up well after that off track at the top of the hill at the start of the race.
He's showing up on our timing at the moment. That's where we've been thrown out. So a transponder issue for Kelly, but he is behind Shields, so that puts him up to 6th spot. A chance of maybe getting to 5th. So they've passed Curry.
He's there behind Axissa now. Jarvis is starting to chase Curry down. So, yeah, it looks like Kelly might have just dropped off our timing here. But anyway, we'll continue on, because look at this. Chet defending to the inside, trying to hold on to the position. See what he can do there down into turn 1 and 2.
So he's got Lockie Gardner behind him.
Yeah.
There's Ash Jarvis. Raced in Trans Am TA2. Production cars as well. So very much happy to be back in a race car that he's learning about. Actually won the first TA2 championship in Australia, and as a result of that got to race in TA2 in America. Has a prize for winning that. I think it was at Daytona, if memory serves me right. And did pretty well over there as well.
He was showing a great ability behind the wheel and how well Australian drivers can do on the international stage. Just unfortunately, like so many things for Australian motorsport, it's so hard to get the budget to be able to travel internationally and race. As we go to the back section of the circuit and see here Chetan coming under pressure now in the late stages of the race from the other marked car behind, which is the 707 of Gardner, and he's going to look to the inside. No, it doesn't quite get there.
It's a 10-lap race, and they've just completed 8, so we're on the penultimate lap.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see if Jarvis can pick up some more spots. Here's Gardner trying to find a way around Chetan.
Looking everywhere, isn't he? Left and right. You can see he feels a lot more confident of placing the car.
Well, that wider line is a quicker line, there's no doubt about that. Furcher in the background in the Toyota Chev, the LS powered car. So it's been an interesting race. So Kelly's the one that we should keep an eye on, because he's not coming up at our time. We have him currently 6th on the road. This is a battle for 7,
unless
8,
he came
9.
to the pits, because he's 23rd on timing and he's a lap down. So
maybe
he came into the pit lane and we've just missed it ourselves.
Yeah.
We'll have to find out after the race and see what's happened there. As
There'll be a lot of stories after this race.
Chetton opens the gap, and this is what's happening in this race as well. You'll have two cars that are very, very close together, but then in different areas of the circuit, they're quite strong or weak, and so they spread apart, and then you have them close right back together at the back section of the circuit. So look at that, Gardner now right up behind Chetton after Chetton opened probably 5 or 6 car lengths down into turn 1.
Chetton unfortunately had an accident in qualifying at the last round of the New South Wales State Championship. Coming out of turn 8, backed it into the concrete wall there, and unfortunately lost his lead in the state championship. So he'll be looking to consolidate here, and getting to the line ahead of Lacey will certainly help his situation there. Theo Camburis, which we talked about, but now has got damage on that car. Front guard coming on, curling away there.
I'd suggest that at some point he has probably dropped off the circuit with the right front, and it's just broken the pin on the bottom there that holds that guard on. It should be all right, you would suspect.
Could have come loose, but we are on our final lap, and it's Caruso still leading the way.
Gardner's got past Chetton while we were looking at Camburis, so we'll have to see if Gardner can move away from Chetton enough to open up the gap. But Heimgartner with the lead in this. Heimgartner trying to chase down the lead, from Caruso. There's our leader, Caruso, at turn 6. He's coming through on Mantikos, who was slowed in the back section of this race because Godfrey has been able to get past him. Now Caruso looks to the inside of Godfrey, not going to be able to do it there. Of course, Corporate Hill, very, very greasy, and just a place where you probably, if he doesn't have to, there's no point shoving it down the inside. He's got over 15 seconds lead.
And Caruso be going on yesterday's lap car incident. He doesn't want to repeat of that, especially now that he's got a 15-plus second lead over Heimgartner in second. And it's a good fight back from him to establish himself back at the front of the field where I guess he rightly should be. He's been the pace setter all year, and it's just for some unfortunate situations, and he hasn't won every race really.
That's it. And he's going to come across the line here to take another victory in the Precision International National Sports Sedans Championship, round 4 here at Sydney Motorsport Park with the ARDC Super 70. As they come down to the line, you can see there's Heimgartner moving to the inside in the Duggan Aston Martin. He'll pick up second place in the race, some 15 seconds behind. I think once he was a little bit buried after that bad launch off the start, he just could not come back through. And then we look down for Tomasi. There he is at the top of the straight now. The second black car on your screen coming down. He's just in front of Taunton. So he's actually lost a lot of ground in the last 2 laps to Taunton, because he's going to have a very small gap between the pair of them, less than a second at the line.
And then it should be Brad Schulz.
There he is.
Will be the next car across the line. Twin rotor turbocharged Fiat 124, as Joe said.
He takes out the Kumo tyres, New South Wales Sports Sedan's second race for the weekend.
On top of winning the first race.
Should be helping his championship points as well.
I think he's had so much drama early in the year. I don't think he's a threat. That champion still is between Chetton and Lacey.
And we'll see Chetton coming around now. Gardner, once he's past Chetton, has been able to just open up the gap. You see there, Chetton coming onto the top of the straight. He has fallen into the clutches of Furcher. I would suspect that maybe he's just bringing that car home with a little bit of a drama, because here he comes across the line. It's going to be next to nothing between Chetton, Furcher behind that. Steve Lacey comes in 4th place for the New South Wales Sports Sedans here at Sydney Motorsport Park.
And 11th outright for him. Then it should be seeing who else is coming down the straight. There's quite a few lap cars in there. Fred Assisa is one of them. He comes down to the line. So it's been a entertaining race. It might not look that way on paper, but certainly a lot going on. We're going to take a big break now. Well, a little break. If you're tuning in the live stream, it won't be that long, because we've got Group S coming up next for their 3rd race, and then that's followed by Superkarts. So we're on track for a while here now at Landline TV, but we'll take a short break now, get ourselves ready for Group S production sports cars.
With Ron Goodman, owner of a fantastic collection of Porsches that he races, he restores and absolutely loves. Ron's racing the oldest car in the field here this weekend. And Ron, perhaps you could tell us a little bit about this wonderful old 356 Pre-A model beside us.
It's a 54 Porsche. As you said, it is the oldest one in the field. It's probably one of the oldest Porsches running around the world. We've won races all around the world with this car. Laguna Seca being the last one where we took it over, and we were fortunate enough to even beat Patrick Long, who is a Porsche factory driver in a Speedster. It's my sentimental favourite, this car. We've built this car from scratch. It's got the best of everything in it as far as the year model is concerned, like a 54, and it's even got its own movie about which you were part of. Yeah.
How long have you been racing this car, Ron?
It'll be around about 20 years now, I reckon 15 to 20 years I've been racing this car, and during the time we've had to rebuild it a couple of times, do a few repairs on it, but it's my favourite little thing to run around in.
There's a few other cars here, some of which I haven't actually seen before. Perhaps we could just walk around. We'll just move over to one of the other cars and you can tell us about it. Now, Ron, I think it's fair to say that nobody has ever seen a 356 quite like this one.
No, I got the inspiration for this one from the Janis Joplin car back in the 60s, where she done it in all the psychedelic colours. So we contacted Danny Eastwood, who's one of Australia's top Aboriginal artists. He done all the artwork on it for us, and we've decided to drive it to Uluru, and on the trip we're raising money for the Children's Hospital.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, this isn't all you have here on display this weekend. There's behind us. Now, this is something completely different, something that looks to perhaps to some people like just like the first car we were talking about. Tell us about the little 356 behind us with the yellow glass.
Yeah, this is a 356B, and I wanted to build something that still retained the Porsche DNA, but literally no one in the world had seen. So together with an Australian company, Radial Motion down in Adelaide, we designed and built a 3-cylinder radial engine for the back of it, which is nitrous oxide injected. We've got a full Motec system running the car, handmade steering wheel. Everything on this car is completely handmade. We lowered the car down by an inch and rolled the seals on it to give it a better stance.
It looks amazing. I heard it start up earlier, and that is something else again. We'll just walk over to the Formula Ford, which is something a little different from the cars I normally see from Ron. Tell us about this Formula Ford.
I've always been so wrapped in the open wheelers, and this one's a Merlin. It's a 1969 British Championship winning car. So it come up on collecting cars, and I just had to grab it. You know, and then once I got it, we got another body for it, and we painted it in our colours. And I've had a lot of fun driving this one around.
For those who haven't seen Ron's cars before, you can always pick them, because with one exception here today, they're always painted what I call Goodman Grey. It's Ron's trademark colour, Goodman Grey with the lime green highlights. Now, immediately behind the Formula Ford is one of my favourites, the Porsche 906. Now, these things are just absolute automotive art. I think it's very hard to find a better-looking car from what is certainly for a lot of people one of the most iconic periods of historic sports car racing.
Mate, this thing, I could never drive this car till its full potential. It's so fast and it's so dangerous. I had little Warren Luff drive it at the time attack for us, and he even got out. He said it's an amazing car. He'd driven the Warwick Miller car before as well, and he said, mate, these cars are just so awesome. They'll bite you really quick, and when they do bite you, they're going to hurt you. And I'm getting too old to get hurt now, so I just cruise around in it.
It's a wonderful looking thing, and behind us to our right, we've got something again. Not normally what I see in Goodman Grey. It's a Mustang.
Yeah, I've always had my 66 Mustangs. I've got a weak spot for them, and this one come along, so we just had to grab it and paint it grey. And it's just a weekend cruiser that we go out, take to cars and coffees every now and then. And I can go in incognito because nobody expects me to turn up in a Mustang. So
the grey could be a bit of a giveaway to some.
I think that's what usually gives it away. That's why I go leave the 54 Vet in white. That way no one will know who I am when I come there.
Well, that's a good segue to the 54 Corvette in white, which is behind us or in front of us now. A white car from Ron Goodman.
Its original colour was white, and that's how I bought it. It's got a lot of original patina to it, so I've left it that way.
It's a beautiful, beautiful motor car. I can remember, that's a 6-cylinder car?
Correct, yeah, the Blue Flame engine 6-cylinder with the triple carburettors, yeah.
The triple carburettors is a bit different, isn't it?
No, that's standard.
That was standard?
Yeah, that was standard. It's not the fastest thing you'll ever drive. You just put it in D for dummy and just cruise along the highway, you know.
And Ron, you've got another one undercover. You've got any other projects on the go at the moment?
Yeah, we've got a couple of cars that we're sort of working on at the moment that'll be coming out soon, and they're pretty sweet. Going to be pretty special cars.
And there's even one more here today, which is right above us, and that's a lovely little early 911.
It's actually a 912, that one.
Is it?
Yep, and if you look at the sign writing on that, that's actually pure gold. That's gold leaf, all the sign writing on that one.
Well, of course it is.
On the grey, yeah.
Ron, that's been fantastic to catch up. I think your collection of Porsches is quite outstanding, and it's just wonderful to be able to share it with everybody today. Thanks very much.
Thank you, mate. That's very humbling. Thanks, John.
Well, Group S cars now on track for their third race of the season. And John, you made quick time to get back here, and you're not even out of breath.
No, I'm fine. And on pole, we've got Wayne Seabrook, who won both races yesterday. Wayne in the blue Porsche Carrera 3 Litre, and alongside him in second position, Damien Meyer in the 1275cc MG Midget. Now there's a little bit of intent being shown on row 2 with Doug Barber lining up the navy blue Carrera 3 Litre with a hope to get through on the to the left of Damien. Then we've got
Jeff Morgan missing.
Jeff Morgan appears to be missing. We've got James Calvert-Jones in the silver car in position number 5, but it looks like position number green flag has been shown. Position number 3 is not occupied. Mickey Perlade in 6th in the darker green Porsche Carrera. So they should be ready to go any moment. The revs rise, and away they go. Great launch by Wayne Seabrook, who didn't have the best of starts yesterday. Doug Barber did exactly what I thought he was going to do. He pointed the car in the direction of left and was able to get by Damien Meyer in the blue MG Midget as they headed down towards turn 1. Further back in the field, great dicing between Alphas, Alfettas, the Datsun 2000 there, and Terry Lawler in the big Shelby 350 GT heading down behind Perlade as James Calvert-Jones gets it very sideways out of turn 2.
I wonder if there's a little touch there between those two.
I think so. But that allowed the Potts in the Datsun 280Z to get by a couple of cars that were previously holding him up.
Tom Walston in the 928 in behind Lawler as well. Must say that the little midget of Damien Meyer has been a thorn in the side of Porsches for a long time. He and his brother Simon would have been both up there, but unfortunately Simon crashed in qualifying.
Yes, he had a little bit of an off yesterday. Now we've got Mickey Perlade, who has a witness mark on the door of his Carrera.
That was there before the meeting, I think.
Yeah. James Calvert-Jones behind him. Potts in the Datsun. It's a 280Z, a model not sold in Australia. They had a 2.8 litre version of the early shape in the States. Now, James Calvert-Jones taking that wide line around the outside. Is it going to work for him? Not this time, although he's got a pretty good pace coming out of onto that back straight.
Terry Lawler trying to work up on the inside of Wayne Potts as they go through turn 9. Not on the right side of the road to make that work. Calvert-Jones is a lot closer to Mickey Perlay in this race than he has in the previous contests. And he's also under fire from Potts. Down the straight, though, you would think Terry Lawler will be the one that will benefit the best or the most.
Well, Lawler's about 20 kilometres an hour faster than anybody else in the field down the straight. He's got his work cut out at the back of the circuit, but you can just see the power of that Shelby coming down the straight. He's in a class for cars built in the 60s, whereas the Porsches are all in the class for cars in the 70s. Now, Potts having a really good look at Perlade, but nothing doing at this stage.
And Potts is in SC as well, isn't he?
He is.
Porsches, so he's battling for class honours with the Porsches, whereas Terry Lawler's in SB, the earlier cars, and there's no SAs. I think the only SA was going to be Ron Goodman until he had his dramas.
Greg Prunster in the little Lanham Sprite was on the list as well. So out the back of the circuit they go, and this is where the real action is.
Certainly is. Wonder what's happening at the front of the field. Wayne Seabrook went through ahead of Barber, Meyer in third, and this is the battle we're seeing here, fourth, and Co battling it out there, right back to Wallstead in that. Why I like the 928. So if you do a good looking car.
The funny thing, I think they're aging really well.
Yeah. Very advanced for us.
Yeah.
For the era, very distinctive, non-Porsche type cars.
But here we go. Meyer having a look at Doug Barber. Nearly got by there, but Barber managed to hold him out. It'll be up to Damien Meyer to see how close he can get to him now in the back of the circuit.
Seabrook certainly in a class of his own, has been in Group S for quite a while.
Wayne Seabrook's a very good driver.
And they're chasing the water across the track, which is interesting. So that means there must be a dry line out there somewhere. Meyer stays out in the fast line. You can see going down to turn one, there's already the appearance of a dry line. There's already people asking questions about the upcoming races. Should we go onto a dry tyre or stay with our wets? At this stage, it's looking increasingly more like maybe a dry tyre might be the way to go. If cars are out there chasing water, that means they're on wets, and the wets aren't working because the conditions are drying up. And I think that cold wind is probably not helping situation as far as that goes.
Fastest lap to Damien Meyer in the MG Midget. Faster than Seabrook, faster than Barber, and faster than Lawler in the 350 Shelby. That's not bad, is it?
Yeah, the only problem with, unless Meyer can get past in the twisty parts, he's got no chance in the straight line, has he? He's probably one of the slower cars down the main straight.
Well, I think yesterday Lawler was doing 225, something like that down the straight. Seabrook 207, 208,
yeah, and Meyer wasn't even cracking 200.
No, 175,
yeah.
And he still came second.
Yeah, and we had in the first race, as you recall, John, he spun coming out of turn 7, did a full 360, got going, lost 2 places, got him back, finished second.
Yeah. The wetter it is, the better it is for Damien Meyer.
Yeah.
And the problem is that he's not quite close enough in these conditions as they arrive at turn 2, because it's really, if he doesn't get by about 3 or 4 or 5, he's not going to be able to get hold Barber out as they go down the straight.
That's true. Both the Meyer boys have been exceptionally good in these cars. We're back in the field a bit, some more going on. There's a Datsun 2000 just being passed by the MG.
That was Kent Brown in the black MGB, David Daly in the Datsun 2000. They're coming up on Doug Selwood in the Alfetta GT. And there's Burson in the red Datsun 240Z in the background as well.
Yeah, well, that was the car that was sold here. And as you said, the 280Z wasn't. And that's quite an interesting little scrap going on there for what effectively would be around 14, 15, 16th positions.
Yeah, let me just have a look. There's Selwood 55, he's in 14th. There'll be Warren Hotz in the blue midget and Kent Brown in the black MGB, keeping them honest as well. That's a really good dice, and Warren Hotz now dives to the inside of Selwood and the Alfetta as they come up to turn 2. Can he make this stick, or will Selwood have a quicker line going around the outside on the karting line?
Not on this occasion.
Didn't work for him.
No.
And I think that's also indicative of the fact that the circuit is drying out a bit.
We're certainly getting a drying line. And Seabrook's lead is only 1.6 seconds, so he hasn't got away from Doug Barber at all, has he?
Big surprise to me, to be honest with you.
And I think Barber has actually got the fastest lap of the race.
He has indeed.
You alluded to earlier. And certainly it's not by much, it's only by about 100th of a second, but it's certainly enough to keep him in the picture.
Well, so Kent Brown being challenged now by Daly in the Datsun 2000 and manages to hold him out as they head around the back of the circuit. Do I see rain on our screen?
Yes, it looks like it. it's not raining where we are, but it's raining at certain parts of the track. It's almost like a Mount Panorama-ish weather where you can get it. One part of the track is wet and the other parts aren't. And it just makes it so tricky for anyone trying to do a setup, trying to figure out what sort of tyres you're going to go out on. And possibility that we're having another passing shower, which is because the weather's coming in from the drag strip side of the circuit, which is the southeast. It's going to hit the back part of the circuit with turns 5, 6 and 7 before it gets to the front straight.
Now we're looking at this dice between Lawler, Potts and Perlade, and Perlade's at the back of that group at the moment. And
no one's got a better start than what Nicky Perlade did in that first race yesterday. That was a blitzer of a start.
It was a blitzer, and he didn't jump the start over, but he went from 6th to 1st by turn 1. It was just one of the. He'll never do a better start.
I bet you're quite proud of that one, was he?
I think if I were Mickey, I'd have that thing on constant loop playing in my garage at home just to remind myself how good it was.
Did he have an in-car on that one?
I don't know.
All sorts of dramas coming out of turn 6. So it looks like it's got a bit wetter down at turn 6, where we figured that the weather would first hit the track, and that seems to be the case. And even Perlade's getting a bit squirrely coming out of 7. You think that the Porsche with the weight over the rear wheels with the engine in the back would be the better car in these conditions?
I think that Potts is definitely under extreme duress at the moment. Down to this last series of bends to come onto the straight, and Perlade gets a wide line out of there, which should serve him well as they come down the straight. But that Datsun's got a lot of mumbo in a straight line.
It has. And there's Barber looking for wet weather over on the wet part of the track on the driver's left coming down the straight. So the front straight is still relatively dry. It's the rear of the circuit where we think that there's a little bit of moisture at the moment.
Undoubtedly so. They're coming up now to turn 2 with Potts coming a pretty good lead there. Now we've got Bill McGoffin in the blue Alfetta GT with the orange stripe, and behind him we've got the little early 911 just in its Bahama yellow livery. Some people called it by another name back in the period.
I can understand that.
And
it's similarly so the MG behind it.
Yes. Now that's a little car that had Bajent that had a little bit of rearranged front left guard yesterday.
Yeah, out of turn 7 again.
Yeah.
We figured that there must have been something down on the road because he crashed out of turn 7 and went into the wall on driver's left. And then it was just shortly after that Meyer had his pirouette there at the same spot. So we figured there must have been something a bit slippery down there, but it's good to see that the Bajent MG's been repaired and is back out there.
And he's taken the position from Ryan Kernick in the 2-litre 911. This is from the earlier class called Group SB, cars built up to the end of 1969. That means if you've got a Porsche in that class, it has to be a 2-litre. You can see the front left corner with the evidence for all to see from where it clattered the wall yesterday.
Had a bit of a massage, you might say.
Yeah, it did, didn't it? But great to see it out there. And I think that's Tammy Lee Hotz, is it not, in the... it's Tammy Lee Hotz in the other midget coming up behind them. Our only female competitor in this race today.
And the other Holtz car I was thinking of, car 21, it's up in 12th at the moment. Yeah, that car was quite prominent yesterday, wasn't it?
It was indeed. The Hotz family love their MG Bidgets, love their racing, and here they are.
Of course, if you want to see more Group S racing, go to any historic meeting. The HSRCA events, which are, there's one more to go this year, unfortunately, with the closure of Wakefield Park. Yes. I won't be down there in a couple of weeks.
No, there was going to be one, I think, next weekend, but nothing happening there. Now, look, Damien Meyer all over the back of Doug Barber now the circuit has got wet around the back. Yeah. Looking desperately for a place to go.
So he's got the wipers on here, so there is a bit of rain over the what we call the backside of the track.
Well, you might call it that. I mean,
Well, I met it from being at the rear rather than the front.
yes. And
There's Wayne Seabrook going through, and he's still not that far in front of these two. Two seconds at the moment.
He's about to lap Sam Gurgis in the yellow MGB.
Another one of those aspiring browny yellow colour schemes.
Oh, no, that one's actually yellow if you look at it. I think it might have a bit of dirt on it, but it's actually a beautiful bright yellow. It's a very nice looking car.
And certainly the Meyer boys pedal these cars fantastically well.
Oh,
They
yeah.
just don't have the straight line oomph to go. And there's Barber looking for the wet part of the circuit again, as Seabrook in front of him does as well. They're just currently coming up to finish what would be lap 7, and they're going out on their final lap now. So Seabrook's lead is now out to 2.2 seconds. So I think that may have been brought about by Barber trying to get away from his protagonist there in Damien Meyer, who now will be all over the back of the Porsche through the back part of the circuit.
Well, yesterday Seabrook just decided to be as dominant as he could. He's still dominant today, but not by the length of the straight, which is what we saw yesterday.
Yeah.
He was absolutely in a commanding position there.
We had a chat to him yesterday. He said he loves talking, but as soon as we put a microphone in front of him, he thought he'd jab it a bit. But we assured him that he did a reasonably good job.
Very, very good steerer. And Doug Barber had qualified this weekend a little bit down in the wet weather, but still managing to hold Damien Meyer out. We've still got Potts in 4th position.
And Perlay 5th, Lawler in 6th, Wallstead in 7th. And the main battle at the moment, well, they've closed right up again. I think Wayne might be just taking a little bit easy.
I do
Although
too.
it's not like him generally.
No, it's not.
Former Sheffield Shield opening batsman for New South Wales. Always had the fire in the belly and wanting to perform at the utmost that he could.
And takes his racing very, very seriously
He
as
does.
well. Doug Barber, I think, has got this one now sewn up for second position. Damien Meyer would just be praying that they'd add a few more twisty bits around the back of the circuit
Needs
for
to
him.
throw a rope out on the back of that Porsche and
Yeah.
get the toe.
Here comes the checkered flag out. Down the left-hand side of the track goes Wayne Seabrook.
Will take the win, barely. Hasn't been much in it as they cross the line. Wayne Seabrook wins, Doug Barber in 2nd, and Damien Meyer very close 3rd. Wayne Potts not that far away in 4th spot, and then it's Mickey Perlay in the 188 green put, and one of them got a little bit squirrely coming out of
Yeah, well,
the
something
wide corner.
sort of happened a bit strange there because Terry Lawler ended up coming through. So who have we missed?
Perlay, have we?
Perlade, fastest lap of the race to Mickey Perlade.
Yeah,
no,
he did.
there's been a bit of a rearrangement now. That was just a glitch.
He was 4th across the line. Potts in 5th, Lawler 6th, then Wallstead. Calvert Jones is the one that slipped back a bit. And then the next group will be headed by Wilson Brown, followed by Weston, and then Holtz, Selwood in 12th spot. Then we go back to Daly, Harris, Brown, and Burson. Mogoffin back there in the car that I have not seen before, because normally he runs a GTV 750, doesn't he, in these sorts of races?
This is a McGoffin.
McGoffin.
McGoffin's got a beautiful 17. He's got two 1750s.
Oh, okay.
One which is a Bathurst car.
Yep.
And then the other one was the ex-John Lenny car. But here they come down the back of the field. It's McGoffin now, and the Alpha finishes ahead of Ryan Koenig. Then it'll be the MG Midget of Bajent, Tammy Lee Hodson, then the other old car, or the early car, the Group SA, Austin Hilly Sprite with the fastback hardtop, finishing the race. And great to see a couple of the really early cars out there. So that was Greg Punster, and I might add it with the same entrant as the Meyer brothers.
Oh, there you go.
Which is Blinds by Peter Meyer.
Yeah.
But without Simon there, I couldn't say that the blind was leading the blind. I was really disappointed.
Boom, boom. Okay, we're going to have a quick break here, and then we're back with the little pocket rockets, the Superkarts, out for their third race of the weekend. Okay, Superkarts back on track after 2 races yesterday. Out again today, and I've got Pelicano with us who knows a little bit about these karts and what they do. We've got essentially 5 classes here this weekend. Only one of the 250 national karts, unfortunately. Very much a race amongst the 125 gearbox karts as we've seen yesterday. And welcome aboard, John.
Good morning, Gary. Today we do have, in fact, there's quite a few classes that you will see. Hence the discrepancy in the machines. You'll see now there's a 250 single, the gaggle of 125 open class, and then you'll find behind will come the non-gearbox 125s.
So we've got 2 lots of 125.
Actually, we have got 2 lots. Sorry, I left them out. We've also got
Stock
a class
Honda.
called the Stock Honda.
Yep.
That class is mixed in with the one. Well, it's not mixed in, but you'll see it appear in a minute. There's a few of them, so they've separated. The grid order will be they leave a bit of room between the classes.
Yep. And then we've got the Rotax.
Then you've got the Rotaxes,
which are non-gearbox.
Which are non-gearbox.
So the stock Hondas, they're restricted as opposed to the 125 gearbox, even though they have gearboxes.
In technical terms, stock Hondas are just basically a CR125 motocross engine that's a control class, as opposed to the open class where they use the KZ125 motors, which are very popular now. And they can be modified and make them go as fast as you can.
The other intriguing thing I like about karting is that the fact that you can tell the classes by the colours of the numbers and the plates.
That's correct. Yes. Once you know what colours and numbers the plates are, then you can tell, and you can see now the way they're gridding up, ready for the start.
And it's a rolling start, and they're already underway. So we've got the 250 national, the singles.
Yes, he'll get away, and then now you'll get it'll be interesting to see how these 125s. They were all sort of debating what was going to be, but basically you're looking at the quickest group here. They'll quickly break away.
They'll probably pass the 250, will they, as well?
I believe they will. I'll get to him.
Yep.
They're probably a second or 2 quicker per lap at the moment than the current 250 that's on the circuit.
We've got on frame there's Lee Vella and Mark Robin in the 125. And of course Lee Vella's probably the most successful in recent times in New South Wales in 125s.
Yes,
Aaron Cogger, Mark Robin have always been very competitive against him.
Yes, you've got Lee. You've also got young Nick Shimbury. He's up from Victoria. And
he's the Australian 125 champion.
Yes, he's well, as you can see, he's already broken away and he's gone. He's quick.
Well, looked like he was going to be beaten by Paul Campbell yesterday until the very last corner.
Well, yes, that's correct. Again, there was the story hinged around tyres. So you saw a typical example of a fresh set of wets and a used set of wets. And even now, some of these guys will have wets. And some will have slicks. Now, I'm just trying to have a look and see who's got what, but the track, really, they should be on, the fast guys will be on the slicks.
Would you have gone out on slicks?
I would have gone out on slicks.
Because there is a dry line. We're seeing that up there at turn 11, but there is still wet parts of the track.
Well, the problem you've got now is that they'll go looking for water because it won't take long to destroy a set of wets. Some of these wet weather tyres may not make the end of the race if they don't get water on them.
So you can tell the ones that are gone to wets by where they are on the track. Just trying to chase down some.
Well, now that's Paul Campbell there in the orange and white cart. Now I don't know why he's running. I suspect he's on slicks.
Yeah, I think one of the carts at turn 2 on the first lap fell off to the side or went really wide, and it
that
might
would
have
have
been
been number 81, Laurie Fuchs. I think he may very well be on slicks as well.
So it might not be the optimum choice, not to start the race, but by the end of it might be.
Yes. They're very difficult choices to make. You just don't know. You've got to. I'm just trying to see what tyres Paul's got on. They're hard to see. I'm looking for a white band around the tyres. That'll tell me what it is. But
so at the moment we've got Nick Shembry in front from Adam Stewart in second and Mark Robin third. Then it's Lee Vella in fourth, Laurie Fuchs in fifth spot, Lawrence Shand in sixth, and then the first of the stock Hondas in row, I think, is the next one. Would that be correct?
Let me see. Okay, so there's Shang, Rowe.
Rowe's in stock Honda, isn't he?
He's in. That's a stock Honda.
Yep. And looks like Stevens has dropped right back out of it. So been a change of position. Fuchs just past Vella. Vella's in the green, 76.
I think. Well, I've got an eerie feeling Vella's on. I have a sneaking suspicion he's on wets. Rather destroyed wets, I'd say. And just by the way the cart's handling, you can tell it's all. You can see they've gone to sponge.
Yeah,
he's all over the place.
And he just passed Fuchs, got his spot back too.
Yes.
So he's back up to third position. Adam Stewart hasn't been right up the front all day yesterday, but today he seems to be.
Well, they find, I don't know, maybe he's had a good sleep. You don't know. Look, all of them are capable of running up the front. They're just. You can't pick them. See, I mean, Lee Vella's all over the place.
And looks like Fuchs might get him back here in through turn 7.
Absolutely.
And has he got the job done? He certainly has, and moves back ahead again. Differences in the 125 carts I'm interested in, because 125s are the dominant cart here this weekend. Top 6 spots. 7 spots are held by 125 gearbox carts. Different chassis, engines, all basically the same.
No, not really. You've got currently there in the field. There'll be 3 KZ style motors. You've got the DEA 125. You've got the Medina 125, the TM 125. All these engines. With the exception of the DEA, they're all prevalent in the sprint world, and they come from the sprint world. We modify them a little bit, but in the main, they're a KZ motor that in recent years has superseded the RS 125 Hondas. And look, they make a lot of power, and they're very, very. They're very quick for what they are. They're incredibly fast.
And of course, if you want an idea of how fast these things are, 195 kilometres an hour down the main straight here for a 125 gearbox.
Correct.
The stock Honda's about 10 k's slower, and then you go back to the Rotex classes, the light and heavy, 155 k's from what essentially is a sprint kart, but just geared up.
The Rotax Max is also a sprint kart. It's a sprint engine derivative with a clutch, centrifugal clutch. So most of these, with the exception of the 250, the only 250 running today, which is a 250 single, which is a motocross, a derivative of a motocross engine, which is a CR 250 Honda.
You're allowed to run a single pot 450 engine of some sort too.
Within the class, you can run 450 4-strokes as well, which fit within the class. We don't have any currently running. I believe there are possibly 1 or 2 that may come, but certainly in recent, despite the fact that that they were approved many years ago, we haven't seen any 450 4-strokes in the class.
Is there any inclination to go that way?
Look, again, it's one of those things that what wins on Sunday sells on Monday.
Yep.
Power to weight ratio, the two strokes are a bit hard to beat.
So if someone comes out and wins with a 450, then other people will start putting something together?
Well, that's motor racing to a T, isn't it?
It is.
Yes, you're right. If someone comes out with a four-stroke that works and works well, people will look at it and go, "Wow, I might want one of those."
Yeah.
I don't know that much about them. I believe there's a fair bit of work to get them into proper supercart trim. They don't make quite as much power as a two-stroke, but what they do have over the two-stroke is that they've got a lot of torque. So the way they're driven is completely different. But look, until such time we see one, at the moment in Australia there isn't any running around. There may be next year, we don't know. And it remains to be seen.
So we're looking at a battle going on here between Tweakton, Vickers and Rowe, and they're in three different classes. So that's interesting.
Yes.
So there is inter-class racing, and probably the track conditions is probably contributing to that to a certain degree.
Yes. The current conditions mix it all up a little bit, and again, we've also got another thing to consider. You've got those that have got, we'll see, Lauren's coming in. You've got those that may have slicks and those that may have wets. Now, we won't know until the end, but I can tell you one thing. Whatever Nick Shimbury's doing, he's doing well.
He's 20 seconds in front.
And he's...
got two off there.
That's Mark Robin's come off.
So he was in fourth spot, and I don't think he's moving.
Dear.
And he's not happy.
No, he's not happy. I think... I suspect one of the...
lap traffic.
Well, currently now we've got the non-gearbox lights. Up the front we've got the young fella from South Australia. I've not met the young fella. He's a very nice young fella, I believe. And behind him is Mark Vickers, who typically hasn't lost a race at Sydney Motorsport Park for many, many years. So I suspect Mark will be enjoying this race, and it's good to see that he's right behind him as well.
So they're in the same class, those
they're
two?
They're the two Rotax lights.
And that's weight that governs
by
the
weight,
difference.
yes.
Yep.
So,
as opposed to Rotax heavy.
Yes, correct. I believe there's about 10 or 15 kilos difference in weight between them.
So it depends on your size. It depends whether you're a light or a heavy. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
Am I being facetious there?
Yeah, no, you're not. No, not at all. You're being 100% right. And again, these are classes that merged over many years ago. That there we go.
Yeah, he did get caught up with the 75.
Oh dear.
And that's
Brian
Tinsley.
Brian Tinsley.
Who got going again. So I guess,
you see, Brian Tinsley. Well, his engine wouldn't have stopped, but if it did, it wouldn't matter because he's got a starter motor, as opposed to Mark, who hasn't. Mind you, Mark's engine didn't stop, but he got caught he got bogged.
Yeah.
So
they're currently on lap 7 of this late 8-lap journey. So they're on the last lap, and it's just been a Shambry show, hasn't it?
Look, I'm hardly surprised, but look, in defence to the boys behind him, I think the only thing they haven't thrown at him yet's a kitchen sink, but there's no lack of trying, put it that way.
Yeah, well, as we said, Paul Campbell was in front and looking likely to win race 2 yesterday afternoon until the crank.
The crank said good night, I've had enough.
Yep, and that was lucky he was able to coast it down and still hold second spot.
He managed, yes, he did. It was an excellent finish considering. these two are having a bit of a ding-dong battle in
That's
the lights.
been going on all race, hasn't it?
Yeah, which is good because yesterday there was a bit of a gap, and the young South Australian's not getting all his own way.
And they're actually fighting for 7th and 8th position outright.
But first in their class.
Now, has Vickers made a move on
He might
him?
have. Close.
Does the fairing help on these carts with being the slowest of the classes?
It does, but yes, it does. But to their credit, there's a high level of skill to make these machines go quick. They've only got back brakes, so they've got back brakes only, and really there's a lot of tactical skills that have got to go into.
So compression lockup would be a big problem for the untrained, I guess, the less experienced.
No, not these particular engines. They're quite in.
Here's our race leader. He will come down, take the checkered flag.
Oh yes, he's got a. He's done a terrific job.
That's 3 from 3 for him this weekend.
Nick, yes.
And we have to wait a fair while to see Laurie Fuchs in second spot, and he's got about 5 seconds on Adam Stewart, who's third, and then we look back to another 16 odd seconds to Lee Vella, followed by Mark Trimmer and Paul Campbell back in 6th position. So they've obviously got that car going again, but as you alluded to, the problem could be that the tyre choice.
Look, normally you wouldn't see such big gaps with the front 125s. I said something's happened, and it would be. I suspect it'll be choice of tyres will be quite important. I know Lee was going out with a new set of wets. Now whether he changed them or not, I don't know, but they were very, very soft wet, so I think that definitely
would it have taken long to change a wheel or 4 wheels on one of these if you decided at the last minute?
Well, it'll take them about 5 minutes to change wheels, but what it is, I think the last rain shower spooked a few of them, and they probably thought they were taking the smart road, but.
Well, that's it for them for Superkarts for race 3. Thank you, John, for the knowledge you've given to us, and we look forward to seeing you this afternoon for the final race for the weekend here at Super70, the ARDC's 70th birthday celebrations. We're going to be back shortly with the over 2 litre historic touring cars. historic touring cars back on track, Group N, and this is for the over 2 litre cars. These are the Tiranas, the Chargers, the Mustangs, what have you. And starting on pole position will be Greg Topher. Qualified 34th yesterday. Got up to about 4th in race 1 because it was so wet, and won the second race. And unfortunately, we've lost a couple of our front-running competitors. Aldo Di Pioli, who won the first race, had a gearbox issue in race 2. I assume it's a failure. And Brad Tilley, who was running second at the time, had an ignition drama, which has plagued that car for quite a little while lately, and he failed to finish. So the door was open a little bit for Greg to go through, but to come from 34th to the front, John, was a pretty good effort. Not bad at all. Already I noticed on the side of the road we had the Steve Shepherd RX2. So that's very disappointing. Aldo's back out there, and Chris Thomas too. Chris Thomas was running second, and unfortunately came into contact with a lap car, the Humpy Holden of all things, and caused some damage here. So Shepherd's out of the car. That car's not in a dangerous situation, so I can't see that being an issue. There's Chris Thomas in the Tirana. They've had to do a massive fix repair on that car. It missed the second race, and look for it from the back. Look for Di Pioli from the back as well. And I noticed John Burke's way back too. I thought he would be a bit further up than that in the Charger. Finished about 10th, I think, in first race, but must have had a drama in race 2. And the big debate, of course, should they go out on wet tyres or dry tyres? I think anyone that's selected a dry tyre now, even though there is not as much difference with these sort of cars than you would have in, say, a sports sedan or something like that, they've still got this issue. So we've got Dale Parry alongside him, then it's Michael Rose, Luke Harrison in the Tirana, David Stone Mustang, Graham Wakefield Mustang, Paul Tierney in his Tirana, Shepherd we know is not there. Di Pioli is further up the grid because it's only the over 2 litre cars, it's only a portion of the grid. So this is actually based on where they finished yesterday. So we were a little bit out of sync in what we said about the under 2 litre. So they're underway, and it's Topher and Perry got looks like a bit of wheel spin off the start. So it's Greg Topher will lead in, Perry in second, and then you'll see Luke Harrison in next. John Harrison, Holden Tirana in third spot. Watch out for that Chev Camaro, and it's already picked up a few positions already, and up to about position 5. There's David Stone and Michael Rose going side by side, an NB car and an NC car. Yes, David Stone on that wide karting line, but I think the track's reasonably dry. It is. I'm not sure that's the place to be anymore. Indeed, there's Paoli just passing Harrison over the top of the tunnel into turn 4. And Thomas getting by Michael Rose's springtime yellow Mustang. Yeah. Not a great yellow colour, I must admit, in my opinion anyway. Oh, I like it. On an early Mustang, I love it. No, we'll see the difference in the Mustangs here. We've got NB Mustangs, our race leaders in NB Mustang. They're on a 6-inch rim, whereas the NC Mustangs that look pretty much the same, the 65, 66 models, they're on the 8-inch rim, so they've got a bit more rubber under them. And when you've got someone like the Chev Camaro on 8 inches, it needs all of it as well. By the way, Aldo Di Pioli drives. There's Chris Thomas. He's moved up. He's just passed David Stone and now working on the back of Luke Harrison. And there's no doubt that I think Chris Thomas... change for the lead. That had to happen. Didn't it? Di Pioli, I think they had a gearbox drama yesterday, so they must have fixed it overnight. There was no one down at the garage this morning when I went to check on what the situation was. So it's Di Pioli out in front in the NC Chev Camaro, the NB Ford Mustang, and they're all looking for a little bit of wet track. So that must assume on that basis that some of them have gone out on wets. If you're on a dry tyre, you might be in a good position here. And Burke picks up Di Pioli well off the track at turn 1. And is he going to get back out of there? Yes, he'll get back out of there. Yeah, but he's dropped a few positions. There's something about Western Australians and driving Chev Camaros sideways. I don't know what it is. I have noticed that, yeah. Comes back on and he'll lose a spot there to Rose momentarily.
And Rose has lost a spot to another spot to Burke in the Charger.
In the Magenta Charger, one of my favourite cars, I must admit. And yeah, so Aldo will be a little bit fired up about that one, I no doubt. And found out the extreme. I dare say that Greg Topher will be extremely happy about how things have turned out.
Oh, I'd say he'd be laughing like a drain in the cockpit of his car.
Yeah. Although he has got Chris Thomas right on his tail now. So Chris Thomas, who they were feverishly working on that car this morning to hopefully they were a bit worried whether they get it back or not. He goes through and takes that spot off Topher.
Well, that's been a huge improvement in the course of this race.
You'd always have to worry when you're changing broken front suspension pieces about how that car's going to handle, and obviously it's handling okay because he's just driving away with it. NC Tirana, it's 6-inch rubber on the road as well, so they're not at a disadvantage in the handling wise, and the Tirana we know is a great handling car, probably better than a Mustang, and driven well. So Luke Harrison there ahead of Dale Perry in his Mustang. Then we've got David Stone in the NC Mustang. Running
slightly later model car, a 67.
Yeah, and you can run the original notchback in either NB or NC configuration. Brad Tilley, who we know is not racing this today, has raced this weekend. He's got a notchback Mustang, but it runs under NC, so it's a 289, but it runs the 8-inch tyre rather than the 6-inch. Just a bit better traction. There's DPL and taking it a little bit easier through turn 1 on this occasion. He doesn't want the
it was still a bit whoopsie, wasn't it?
Whoopsie out of there. Must be a bit loose. And it looks like it's raining down at turn 2. Seems to be a bit of rain coming on our screens at least. Yeah, there's water down there most definitely. So anyone that's on wets will be relieved because their tyre will get a bit of a reprieve as it comes down into the wet part of the circuit if it starts to overheat on the dry parts. So
David Stone there often helps us out. Well, he sometimes helps us out in commentary at historic meetings, basically when one of his cars isn't running. So, but I think they're both mobile at the moment. So
so he'd be too busy to be talking.
Yeah, well, I said to him this morning, you do a great job. I hope you come back, but not too soon. And he said, I agree.
Yeah, so DPL has now moved up to 6th position. By the look of it.
He did lose a few spots, didn't he?
Yeah, he dropped right back behind Burke, as we've seen, and behind Rose, so that gives you an idea of how far back. There's now Luke Harrison putting the pressure on Greg Topher and takes that position away. So we could have a Tirana 1-2 here at the moment. We've got a Tirana in first, a Tirana in second, and a Mustang, and you don't dare tell Greg that his Mustang is a Ford because he is very much a Holden man. He raced E.H. Holdens in the early days of Appendix J when it was brought back as a category, and had a Kingswood for a while when NC started, and then for some reason, which I still think he hasn't got the answer to, he purchased this NB Mustang, but he is enjoying it, and he was a little bit peeved yesterday to find out he was 34th on the grid for the first race. Said thing was just wheel spinning everywhere, and I just said to him, maybe you just should stop taking holidays and think about doing a bit of racing, and he probably agreed with me, but certainly made up for it by winning yesterday afternoon's race.
So DPL up to now to
position 4.
Position 4 on
5.
I think 4 or 5. No.
Yeah, he's come back right through.
Or has he just taken top?
At the moment, he's still in 4th that I can see.
Yeah,
a couple more Tiranas. These ones are further back, and the 73 car caused our safety car yesterday afternoon. It got stranded on the grid and had to be towed away, but it was only a quick safety car, and it really didn't affect the result because no one really got any gain out of a first lap safety car. They started, they got to about turn 3 or 4, and there we have that change of position for third, and DPL goes through. Certainly had some success in this car. He's raced at Wanneroo at Supercar support races as well as at the Bend, and he's won races both there, but he hasn't just clean swept anything. He's had his dramas, but always come back quite strong.
He's working very hard in the wheel. Every corner there's bags of opposite.
I think it's a bit of flamboyancy coming out in some of those manoeuvres. And as I said before, Western Australians and Chev Camaros just seem to want to go sideways everywhere.
There's a certain yellow one I've seen racing that's been known.
Actually, had words with him during the week. He's in America. Paul Stubber, we're talking about, racing Speedway over there at the moment, due back in this country later in the month. And very keen to get his Camaro back out and running. He's also owns the left-hand drive Alan Moffat, Peter Stuyvesant Mazda RX-7, which is just in the final throes of getting a CUD put on that, and he wants to go and race that in heritage cars, which we'll see out here in the course of the day. They've got races for Group C and Group A separately today, as they raced in combined races yesterday. There's I think he might have just overstretched that going into that corner. Just looking, well, we're only just on the lap 5, and it's a 8-lap race, so theoretically he could get back to second position. He should be able to get Harrison. Whether he can get to Chris Thomas, it's hard to say. It's an 8-second break, and you were at the historic meeting in June where certainly Chris Thomas wasn't far behind this car in the dry, so it is a quick Tirana, there's no doubt about it.
No, that weekend I was at Le Mans.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, look what you missed.
Yeah. I missed seeing Holdens and Mustangs.
Yeah, you were just watching some foreign objects running around in France. Yeah, so I think Harrison's put the foot down a bit. He wants to hold on position. Luke, the Harrison family, Luke, Jack, and their father Wayne, also racing in HQs this weekend, and they'll be out in their third and fourth races later today as well. And they've decided that they want to have a run around in historic touring cars as well. So while we see Luke in this car, Jack's got the Holden Monaro, the Brian Potts car. Unfortunately had a, let's say, a bit of an engine problem. It lost oil pressure, so they're not running it. And Wayne's got a Ford Mustang. So the three of them are keen to keep running. And here we go. We'll have a change of position too. And there, Aldo Di Pioli goes into second position as they launch on to the 6th lap. So,
well, he's now 9.2 seconds behind Thomas, so can he do it or can't he? He's certainly going to give it a good old try.
Well, just looking at their times on the last lap, there was only less than 0.6 of a second between their lap times, so there's not that great a difference. So you'd think that Chris Thomas, which is an ample reward for all the work they've had to do to repair that car after race 1 yesterday. So Luke Harrison staying with Di Piola, and Aldo taking it fairly conservative actually for this time of the race. And actually, if anything, Harrison's looking to probably get that spot back.
Well, Harrison was very close to him going around the back of the circuit there, and he's remaining so as they climb up behind Corporate Hill and out of most people's sight.
I was expecting Di Piola to just streak away, but he hasn't done so. He's starting to get a little bit of gap in it.
And Harrison driving that car very well.
He is indeed driving that car quite quickly. And John Harrison, who previously owned the car, has got a Shelby, I think, that he's racing in Group S at certain times.
There's a few Shelbys in
another car that you can't put the Ford tag on either. So at this stage, we've got Di Pioli in second, Harris in third, and then of course Stone has moved up to fourth, Topher back to fifth, and that makes him the fastest or the first of the Group NB cars, all NC cars up the road, and so head off onto what will be their final lap very shortly. I think they may have already done that, although actually no, they're on the penultimate lap now as we speak.
Yeah, there's no evidence of the
last lap board. Remember for a while there they actually stopped showing the last lap board, which was quite off-putting because a lot of people didn't know where they were on the track and how many laps there were to go.
Well, particularly off-putting if you're driving.
Yeah, well, particularly in a category like HQ Holdens, which we'll see shortly. They can't have a radio in their car, so as part of their rules. So you wouldn't know.
Nobody has a radio in Group S,
I don't think they have in Group N. You hook your mobile phone up to your Bluetooth and hopefully that works. Maybe. If you've got a crew here, a lot of people do. They're a one-man operation, aren't they? Come here, run the car yourself. And touch wood, you don't have a drama. You can get through with just running your car on your own.
But the great thing about historic racing is if you're the non-mechanic running in the events like I was, and something goes wrong, all your mates you've been racing against come around and two or three of them say, I know what that is, we'll fix it for you, John. And
Indeed.
away you go.
Yeah,
fantastic.
And most motorsport categories are like that, aren't they?
Yes.
Probably not right at the top end because there's too much at stake, but certainly in historic racing we get that through all the categories. And there's a good dice going on between a couple of the Ford Mustangs, the 33 car of Wayne Harrison, which we were talking about before. That's the car that he's got, and he's battling it out with Michael Rose, who's actually dropped down spots. He was on the second row of the grid, I think, at the start of this, and now back in ninth position.
Well, the 6-inch rims probably weren't such a disadvantage in the heavier rain yesterday.
No, it's probably, we remember the first time Muscle Car Masters came out here, and there was 3 Tiranas, and I'm just trying to remember who they were. I think it was Alf Barguana, Trevor Talbot and Andrew Williams. Those 3 cars just blitzed everyone. They had a narrower gauge tyre, a Dunlop tyre on their car, and it was pouring rain, and they just drove away from everything. Nothing else could get there. And surprised a few people. And it was always, because this race is what was originally the Muscle Car Masters, the first year they ran here, it was pouring rain on the Sunday, worse than what we see here. And I remember bumping into Phil Harrison, who was on the board here at the ARDC, who said to me,
Michael Rose has
just taken a position away from Harrison, and Phil Harrison said to me at the time, he said, well, it seemed like a good idea, but we still had 6,000 odd people here that day, and most of them were undercover for most of it because it was that wet. But Harrison's not finished with this. He's having another go. Our race leader's gone through. The gap is now down to actually got DPL there in front, so there's been a drama for Chris Thomas. I suspect he may have pulled off somewhere. There he is, pulled off at turn 8 on the inside, so DPL has come through to take the lead, even despite having a rather adventurous moment of his own.
Well, that was huge.
I just said adventurous. Yeah. So he comes out on the straight, and here we go. WA at their finest. WA drivers in Chev Camaros.
The Western Australian School of Advanced Driving.
What a sad sight to see that pulled up after all the work he did.
Yep.
Chris Thomas pulled up, and there DPL takes the win. It'll be Luke Harrison in second spot. David Stone just doing a little bit of a wiggle as he comes out of the final corner. Dale Perry will come across the line in fourth spot. So NC cars fill the top 4 positions, looking for Greg Topher, and he's dropped quite a few spots. I suspect he may have gone out on a wet tyre, and he's just ahead of David Stone. Graham Wakefield is the next one. Will Graham get him? Greg's not going to let him go the easy way around, so they're coming down.
This is close.
I think Wakefield's got him. He got him on the line, but then Wakefield is in an NC car, so the top 5 are NC. NB cars, Topher leads the way. It should be Michael Rose and Wayne Harrison, but yeah, and Rose has got back ahead of Harrison to take that spot. 9th position will be Paul Tierney in the XU1, and 10th will be Hugo Zockling in his NC car, which is another of the Tiranas. That was the one that didn't get off the line.
Yeah, those 2 guys always.
Well, there they are, the 2 of them.
At historic race meetings.
They're coming down the straight now, and there's not much between them. And unfortunately, that's all our finishes. So on that basis, we'll take a quick break, and we'll be back shortly with Group C out on track. Thank you, John.
My pleasure.